The story kicks off in a super gloomy and wrecked spot, with some shady energy creeping between the rocks. Locked up and looking totally trashed, the oldest son of the Luyang Sword clan hears a mysterious voice asking how he is even handling this nightmare. Completely drained and blindfolded, the air only lets out groans of pain. The sound of heavy chains echoes through the dark room. Right then, a cry of agony escapes his throat, making it obvious how much he is hurting. The figure mentions they have been keeping an eye on the kid since the moment he lost his ability to speak. Even though it is super disturbing to watch, the voice swears that just listening to the guy's heartbeat is enough. Wiped out and confused, the captive asks in his own head who this entity talking to him could be. Panic sets in when he realizes it is pitch black, and the voice points out his eyes were taken from him. The suffering hits different when the figure highlights that the kid's hands and arms had never even done hard labor before. And right at that moment, the prisoner's legs are also completely ruined. Suspended and weak, he is told that his body was slowly broken while he was passed out, causing his memories to come flooding back. The heir then tries to wrap his head around how he could have forgotten the series of tragedies that dragged him into this mess. Right in front of him, the red aura takes shape and notes that the prisoner has faced severe trials and has been stuck there for a really long time. Then the entity drops the ultimate question. It asks if the kid knows what happened to his family. Shaken just hearing about his relatives, the guy barely has the strength to react. Without sugarcoating it, the voice declares that the entire clan was wiped off the map. Forcing the captive to remember, the figure orders him to think about everything that was stolen from him. A vision of absolute ruin pops up, showing the family's ancient buildings being swallowed by flames. A torn banner thrown on the ground symbolizes the ultimate downfall of his clan. The entity guarantees he knows exactly what went down, bringing up the pain of those who made it out. His oldest sister faced the worst treatment from her own husband, who refused to stay tied to a fallen family. The second sister, on the other hand, was a seriously talented fighter. She paid the price for the family's ruin when her energy was obliterated, and she was taken out by common bandits. Freaking out, the MC claims he knows nothing, remembering that his home was filled with elite fighters and genius siblings. Relentless, the figure asks if he was truly that clueless about reality. The truth drops. Right after the firstborn left to marry someone from another clan, the family members fought a brutal war over leadership. Back then, the kid spent his days buried in scrolls, totally obsessed with his studies. The voice asks how, living in his isolated little bookworm bubble, he did not see the disaster coming. The captive tries to excuse himself by playing dumb, saying a simple scholar could not predict something like that, but the entity totally roasts that logic. The figure gets super annoyed at such a weak excuse. After all, since he was 4 years old, he was already helping his mom organize hundreds of advanced medical manuscripts. At 5 years old, the kid was literally advising the emperor on game-changing farming techniques. And at 6, he saved thousands from starving by predicting a massive drought. Comparing him to top-tier strategists, the voice guarantees those legends do not even come close to the kid's brain power. After exposing all this backstory, the entity asks again if the guy's memories have cleared up. Cornered, the MC accepts the harsh reality and admits he knew everything from the very beginning. He justifies it by saying he was born under a tragic star, doomed to a life full of massive conflicts. If he tried to fix the world's problems, he would just bring misery to a ton of innocent people. Chained to this dark fate, the kid admits that at the end of the day he could not run from his own downfall. Back then, he truly believed his only way out was to leave everything to the universe. He trusted that the heavens were fair and that the bad guys would get what was coming to them through the rules of karma. Disgusted by such naive thinking, the entity snaps and calls him a total idiot. The dark voice asks how he could possibly think the celestial forces would care about an NPC-level mortal like him. To prove a point and hand over the revenge he deserves, the figure decides to drop some lore from its own past. The story rewinds to a mythic ancient time, only remembered through lost legends. In that era, there were folks who sought enlightenment and blindly trusted the flow of destiny. People believed there was a natural justice where any messed up action would be paid back with an equal and fair price. But the harsh reality proved that the tyrants lived surrounded by luxury and comfort until their very last breath. On the flip side, most of the people who chose to be good suffered under pain and abuse, passing away way too early, whether they were saints or sinners. As soon as their life energy ran out, they all turned to dust with zero difference. Looking at this setup, the entity asks what kind of justice could possibly exist in such a broken system. Behind that fake hope, the only real thing left is the brutal, unforgiving nature of heaven and earth. The voice wraps it up by stating that this so-called divine justice was always a massive scam. Faced with this harsh truth, the MC lets out a weak, bitter laugh at the whole idea of divine punishment. He finally gets that it is all just an illusion made up by people who have run out of hope. Noticing the shift in the prisoner's vibe, the figure cuts to the chase and offers him power. Filled with an unbreakable willpower, the guy takes the deal without a second thought. The entity keeps going, asking if he is desperate to rewrite history and save the people he cares about. But it warns him the price will be endless agony for his soul, zero peace allowed. Fueled by his new mindset, the heir embraces the burden and promises to use every drop of power to seize this chance. He fiercely swears he will be the only one pulling the strings of destiny for everyone around him. Satisfied with his main character energy, the figure confirms it will grant him this power and a chance to hit the reset button. Then the voice demands the kid face his true self. Right then, an electric shock rips through his battered body as something wakes up inside him. A majestic, insanely powerful presence manifests, opening its eyes and demanding attention. The force of this awakening is so intense that the chains holding him shatter and hit the dry floor. Freed from his bindings, the prisoner touches the ground with bare feet and takes his first steps. A mysterious text pops up in front of him, revealing its cover was forged from pure human essence. The kid reaches out for the dark book, whose pages literally hold the weight of the world. The pages of that tome were crafted from the feelings of someone who held a massive grudge against the heavens. As he seals the deal with his soul, the entity states that, from now on, their paths and goals are totally linked. A massive wave of power surrounds the MC, who is welcomed as the chosen one to kick off a new era. The figure explains that the Dark Book is meant to control the shadows and make the heavens shake. The artifact overrides the ruthless karma that runs the higher realms. Soon, voices of desperate souls echo out, and the voice reveals that the text consumes all the bad vibes. The entity then asks if the kid wants to bring judgment to the wicked and save everyone. Holding such a broken level of power, there is literally no limit to what he can pull off. From that second on, the guy would live and breathe submerged in his own darkness. The shady aura overflows as he gets used to his terrifying new status. The voice dictates that he must use the Sword of Judgment, striking from the shadows. A massive flash of energy blasts the main building of the famous Luoyang Sword clan. A celestial light bathes the huge doors of the firstborn's room. Suddenly, Yeon So-hyun wakes up with a jump in his bed, desperately gasping for air. Total shock takes over as he tries to process that he somehow respawned back in this place. He sits there panting in the sheets, struggling to calm his breathing after that hyper-realistic nightmare. Still trying to catch his breath, the kid tries to figure out what just happened. Looking around, he is mind-blown to recognize the familiar setup of his old life. Totally lost, So-hyun wonders how he ended up here after that weird flash. He quickly realizes he is back in his old bedroom at the Wonggak Pavilion. His feet touch the wooden floor as he takes in the second chance he just scored. Looking in the mirror, the guy realizes with absolute shock that time literally went backward. He notices he went back to when he was 17 years old, way before the whole tragedy timeline started. Outside the pavilion, the staff are whispering, wondering if the firstborn is awake yet. The MC listens closely, managing to hear every single word said in the courtyard with perfect clarity. One of the workers cracks a joke about the situation, calling the heir's status pathetic. The servant keeps trash-talking, claiming the rumors about the kid being a genius were totally made up. Amazed, So-hyun notices his hearing can pick up voices even through the soundproof walls. He quickly realizes his hearing is not the only sense that got a massive buff from the Dark Pact. Checking out his own body, the guy feels a brand new energy pulsing in his veins. A dark, imposing force wraps around him, boosting his physical stats to crazy levels. Analyzing the turbulent flow inside him, he concludes this is the real power of the celestial scripture. However, his new, heavily energized look makes him pause and think. Giving off a super hostile aura, he admits his vibe feels more like a demon than a human right now. Knowing he cannot just walk around flexing this crazy energy, the guy decides to hide his power level. He pauses for a sec, trying to remember how to act like a normal NPC again. Brushing it off as no big deal, the heir ignores the thought. After putting on a more chill face, he finally feels ready to head out. With a solid plan to rewrite his life, So-hyun decides it is time to make moves. With confident, barefoot steps, he heads straight for the door. Without hesitating, the kid slides open his pavilion doors and steps outside. The bright morning light hits his face, pulling a long sigh of relief out of him. Shocked by his sudden appearance, the staff drop what they are doing to stare at him. The servants bow their heads and formally hit him with a good morning. The sunlight bothers him a lot, since his eyes were so used to the absolute pitch black of his suffering. The workers find the whole scene weird and have no idea why the air looks so spaced out. The kid raises his hand to feel the sun's rays warming up his skin. That cozy warmth makes him forget, just for a second, the freezing cold of his dark prison. After soaking in the chill vibes, he straightens up and demands everyone's attention. Using his boss voice, So-hyun orders all the servants assigned to the pavilion to gather up. The head servant is super confused by this random meeting request so early in the morning. Minutes later, a bunch of workers group up in the courtyard, complaining about being called out. One of them openly yawns, trashing the master's supposed lack of skills to his coworkers. Another worker asks why they were even grouped up if they are just going to stand there in silence. The MC scans the crowd with a cold glare, making sure the entire squad is present. His icy expression analyzes the rebellious servants without showing a single emotion. Without holding back, the heir declares that absolutely none of them are needed here anymore. He orders everyone to head to the HR department to get reassigned to other jobs. The announcement shocks everybody, making the head servant stutter in disbelief at the mass firing. Freaking out, the guy raises his voice and angrily protests that this humiliating layoff is totally unacceptable. In silence, the MC thinks about how naive and goofy he was in his past life. Back then, he seriously believed that treating people nicely would automatically earn their loyalty. Even when it did not work, the kid kept hoping his good deeds would change them someday. Realizing how brutal reality actually is pulls a sarcastic laugh out of So-hyun as he listens to their complaining. That Loki chuckle quickly turns into a hysterical laugh, forcing him to cover his face. After calming down, the heir points right at the disrespectful servant. The head worker answers with fear, and the MC dryly asks him who he thinks he is. Gulping hard, the guy answers, stating he is talking to the family's first. Then the kid asks who they think they are to ignore his direct orders. The weight of messing up finally hits the servant, who starts sweating bullets out of pure fear. The heir warns them that acting out gets you some seriously harsh punishments. Coldly, he lets them know that even the lightest penalty would leave the guilty party unable to walk right ever again. Consumed by terror, the head servant drops to his knees, begging for mercy. Terrified, the man cries, promising to be loyal and pleading for his family's sake. Following their boss's lead, the rest of the staff hit the deck too, pressing their foreheads to the floor. The young master brings a finger to his lips, enforcing total silence with just a death glare. He casually watches these grown men humiliate themselves at his feet, completely broken by his authority. Satisfied with the results, So-hyun notes how ridiculously easy it was to get rid of those clout chasers. The MC takes the blame for letting them act so undisciplined in the first place and announces he will not punish them this time. With an ice-cold tone, the master simply tells them to pack their stuff and get off his property. Relieved by the verdict, the servant grovels on the floor, thanking him non-stop for his mercy. The guy promises to pass the message to administration right away, but gets shut down by a dry no from the kid. So-hyun decides he will handle the memo himself and orders them to tell the manager to send exactly one kid to serve him. Ignoring the group, he casually strolls back into the pavilion while the workers scramble away in a panic. Once he is alone, the kid looks at his hand and notices a red aura leaking out, finding the whole thing super weird. He feels the sun still warming him up, but wonders if the sun itself gave up on him, since he cannot actually see it anymore. Right then, the entity whispers in his mind, reminding him that he now lives in the shadows to serve karma to the world. Far away in a fancy room, a kneeling spy drops a major update. The informant says the heir just kicked out all the spies who were keeping tabs on the Wongek pavilion. The news makes the room's vibe instantly heavy while a servant pours tea. The boss senses the MC's dark aura from a distance and gets furious at the audacity of the guy he thought was totally harmless. Outside the administration office, the tension of the incoming changes is already in the air. The head manager, chilling at his desk, admits he always knew this day would come. He thinks it is pretty wild that someone who has been a total recluse for a decade suddenly decides to fire his entire staff at once. Digging through his memories, the manager remembers the day the firstborn grabbed a sword and unleashed a massive presence when he took a stance. The crazy visual left everyone watching completely frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. They were mind-blown when they realized the kid was showing the skill level of a fully maxed-out master. Keeping that memory fresh, the boss wonders if the kid's AFK phase is finally over. Just then, a girl named Jiang steps into the room, greeting her boss politely. He asks her to come closer, announcing they need to talk about something super important. The servant immediately steps up to listen to her orders. The manager explains he always knew she was top tier, which is why he held off on assigning her, but crunch time is here. Without spilling too much tea, he mentions the succession line is about to get chaotic and the firstborn will be right in the middle of it. So the boss leaves the choice to the girl, asking if she is down to be transferred to the young master's pavilion. Gripping her clothes, Jiang accepts the offer on the spot and promises to follow orders. Trusting the girl's street smarts, the manager is confident she will figure out what the reclusive heir is actually plotting. Minutes later, the newly promoted servant is already waiting in front of the main house's huge gates. Admiring the front, she realizes the estate is somehow even more insane than the rumors made it out to be. She remembers her boss's words about how massive the family is, realizing that even an isolated heir is a huge deal. Stopped by a guard, the girl calmly states she is the new hire sent by the admin department. But something catches her eye. She's shocked by how lazy the guards are acting in broad daylight. Analyzing the guy yawning, she figures they must be elite fighters, which explains why they are even allowed to slack off. Keeping her cool, the girl repeats who she is to get clearance to enter. She then smoothly hands over the permission slip signed by the head manager. The guard reads the paper looking bored out of his mind and rubbing his eyes, tells his buddies to open the gates. Jiang finds this sketchy, wondering why they would let her in without doing a basic security pat-down. With a loud screech, the heavy gates open up for the new employee. Locked in on her goal, she steps onto the air's turf for the first time. The area ahead is a path surrounded by plants giving off a thick, mystical vibe. The look of this crazy landscape leaves the worker amazed, but also low-key stressed. As she walks through the glowing woods, she can feel the heavy energy of the place. Continuation of line 193. It does not take long for the girl to realize this forest path is way more than just some pretty landscaping. Walking through, the servant is blown away by the strength of the magic barrier, swearing she has never seen anything like it. She feels relieved realizing her special vision was the only thing keeping her from walking into a trap. Checking out the plants, the girl figures out the greenery actually creates the magic structure, making the air feel super heavy. Just ahead, she spots a silhouette casually strolling through the glowing fog. It was So-hyun, watching her from a distance, totally intrigued that a regular girl could actually see that defense setup. The servant stops dead in her tracks the second she spots the guy on the trail. Spooked, she tries to figure out what this guy is doing blocking her way. The air's majestic silhouette waits for her in the middle of the mystical, power-soaked woods. Straight up, he asks how the intruder can even see him in there. Curious about the whole thing, So-hyun points out how rare she seems to be. Suddenly overwhelmed by the kid's energy, the girl's legs give out and she starts to fall. Her vision goes completely black, throwing her into a blind panic without being able to see anything around her. Inside this darkness, only a ghost-like spark floats in the void. The air's crushing aura floods the area while his eyes glow in a totally creepy way in the dark. Panicking hard, the girl falls into water, gasping for air and fighting to escape the threat. The dark water thrashes around violently while she struggles not to drown. Dozens of shady hands reach up from the bottom and drag her down, accompanied by screams of pure terror. Completely frozen by the shadows, she screams for help in total desperation. The air watches the girl's struggle super closely, silently judging the whole thing. Giving it one last push, the girl reaches her arm out, begging for someone to pull her out of this nightmare. Right at that second, So-hyun grabs her hand hard and pulls her back from the edge. He yanks her into a safe hug, catching the girl as she passes out from exhaustion in his arms. Checking out the girl's face, the kid decides the head servant totally nailed it by sending someone so unique. A bit later, the scene shifts to a bright, chill room with the girl lying on the bed. She slowly wakes up and sits up, having no clue where she is. Scanning the room, the servant notices it is a rustic but super elegant space. Moving quickly, she throws off the sheets and puts her shoes on to snoop around the room. As she walks, her eyes lock onto an old manuscript left open on a small table. Gently, she touches the aged pages of the text, trying to figure out what it says. The girl checks out the weird drawings and details in the document with massive curiosity. The worker flips the pages in awe, realizing the text covers everything from medicine to insane martial breathing techniques. Jiang zeroes in on the massive bookshelves in the room, wondering if the whole collection is this crazy. She starts sweating when she realizes this level of top-tier info should only exist locked up in the Imperial Palace. Suddenly, a noise in the hallway grabs her attention. Eyes slightly wide, the girl tries to pinpoint where the sound came from. The soft click of a wooden door opening breaks the room's silence. Startled by the interruption, the girl gasps and spins around to face the door. The sunlight lights up the outside, showing off a gorgeous, vibrant courtyard next to the pavilion. Amazed by the view, she thinks about how even though it is freezing outside, inside it feels like a super cozy spring day. So-hyun shows up and calmly asks if she slept well, telling her to come down whenever she is ready. Feeling super awkward, the girl nods right away. Enjoying the chill morning vibes, the MC casually asks if her name is Jiang. Sitting across from him, she says yes, and the kid randomly mentions she was pretty heavy when he saved her. Flustered for a second, the servant instantly remembers passing out in that creepy forest. The guy teases her, asking if she does not remember literally collapsing right into his arms, leaving her stuttering and denying it happened. The heir explains he found her during a walk and warns her that, despite the nice weather, she would be in trouble if she stayed outside too long. Grateful for the save, the girl bows deep, swearing she will dedicate her life to serving him to pay him back. Acting super distant and holding a document, he replies that he never asked for that and wonders if the manager ordered her to do it. Showing zero attachment, So-hyun tosses the scroll at her feet and tells her to take it back and leave. The harsh comeback shocks the servant, leaving her frozen for a few seconds. Desperate, she drops to the floor begging for mercy, saying he can take her life to pay for her mistake. Finding her panic hilarious, the master points out how ironic it is that he just saved her only for her to ask to be ended a second later. Jiang swears she will not waste the chance and commits to doing anything, while the young master notices the unique color of her eyes. A slight smirk pops up on his face as he realizes how crazy destiny is for crossing their paths. He spots the golden eyes instantly, recognizing the girl as the mythical golden-eyed witch. Intrigued because he never met her in his past life, the kid abruptly changes the subject and asks if she can cook, totally confusing her. Stepping closer, the kid waits in silence, and the worker nervously claims she has some skills in the kitchen. The flames burn bright in the wood stove as the cooking finally gets going. Sitting on the floor feeding the fire, the girl pants from exhaustion, cursing that this whole mess is because she passed out earlier. But she cannot get the image of the terrifying, monster-level energy the master gave off earlier out of her head. Trying to shake the fear, she wonders if that whole display was just a bad dream caused by being so tired. To stop stressing, she slaps her own cheeks and decides to speedrun making the meal. Chopping the food super fast, the servant thinks about how easily the master messed with her head, making her question all the rumors about him being weak. Moving like a ghost, So-hyun pops up behind her and asks if they are having meatballs, scaring the life out of her. The cook spins around with a knife in hand, and the master jokes, asking what could possibly be more important than the food. Tense, she stutters that the food is the main priority, while the kid smiles and says he is starving. Sweating bullets and stressed by his intense vibe, Jiang answers with a quick mumble. Soon after, a table packed with amazing food is set up, and the heir praises her speed, telling her to sit and eat too. Sticking to the rules, the girl politely declines, saying she will eat later, but the guy demands she sit at the table. Dropping the nice act, the kid hits her with a hard stare and dryly orders her to take a seat. Hating protocols, So-hyun warns her he does not repeat himself, forcing the servant to sit with him. Using his chopsticks, the young master grabs a hot meatball and offers it to the worker to try. He drops the food right into her bowl, leaving her mind blown by how casually he is breaking the hierarchy rules. The heir keeps piling on portions, ignoring all etiquette, while the girl freaks out internally about eating before her boss. Resting his face on his hand looking super chill, he just stares at her and demands she take the first bite. Still hesitant, Jiang eats under the master's watch, and he immediately asks for her review. The top-tier taste of her own cooking surprises the chef, who silently agrees the food is a banger. Hyped that she liked it, the heir drops a gentle smile and announces it is finally his turn to wreck the buffet. One bite is all it takes to blow his mind, praising the seasoning and the insane skills of his new hire. The master eats like an absolute monster, quickly holding out his empty plate to ask for seconds. Eating like a madman, the kid spams compliments about the food while demanding more portions non-stop. Night falls over the pavilion, and the guy's orders for more food echo through the once quiet courtyard. After clearing an insane amount of plates, the servant shyly announces they are out of food, making So-hyun leave the table even though he is still hungry. She offers to brew some digestive tea, but the heir passes, saying he would much rather have some wine. Chilling alone on the roof under the moon, he finds his bottomless appetite super weird, blaming it on his dark scripture. A cocky smirk shows up on his face as he wonders if the only penalty for using time travel magic is just getting the munchies. Out of nowhere, the demonic voice echoes in his head, roasting the kid for being dumb enough to think the penalty would be that basic. The demonic vibe floods the area, calling out to the body's owner through the shadows that make him up. A massive burst of dark aura erupts on the roof, swallowing the kid's figure under the moonlight. So-hyun's face gets covered by darkness, proving he has fully accepted his creepy new role. The entity's harsh, scary voice whispers in his ear, announcing that the moment they have been waiting for is. Standing on the edge of the roof, the heir gets ready to strike, calling out his dark side into the night. Covered in an insane purple energy, the MC jumps into the air, announcing it is time to get a real meal. Far away from the family estate, the busy city of Luoyang is glowing with lights, showing off a completely packed restaurant. The manager tries to block the door, saying they are full, but a warrior insists, pointing at one empty seat in the back. Ignoring the stressed-out worker, the swordsman walks in ready to claim the open table. Getting close to the chair, the warrior freezes when he spots a bizarre entity already sitting there. The man's eyes fill with absolute horror as he watches the grotesque scene going down right in front of him. Massive piles of food are being brutally devoured by rough hands that tear into the meal like wild animals. Controlled by dark magic, So-hyun shoves the food down his throat with crazy rage. Surrounded by wrecked plates, the kid complains non-stop that this normal food is not doing anything for his hunger. The swordsman sweats nervously, hearing the disturbing noises coming from the demon-like guy at the table. His legs start shaking when the man realizes he is definitely not dealing with a normal human. In absolute shock, he runs away screaming, warning everyone that a food-devouring demon is on the loose. Totally ignoring the massive panic in the room, the heir keeps eating aggressively, annoyed that he is still starving. Still fighting his hunger, the kid stares at the absolute mess he made on the table. As he slowly gets his brain back, the dark energy starts to fade away. Deciding that was enough, the heir turns his back on the ruined table and walks toward the door. Frozen by fear after seeing that nasty display, the customers watch him leave in dead silence. Hitting the front counter, So-hyun dryly asks the cashier how much the damage is. Shaking and sweating bullets near the terrifying guy, the employee can barely get a word out. Annoyed that it is taking so long, the kid tosses a heavy bag of coins on the counter and declares that should cover it. Breathing a huge sigh of relief for not getting unalived, the man says thanks a million times, while the other customers wonder if the kid was even human. Out on the moonlit street, the MC gets super annoyed realizing his appetite is still completely out of control. The thought that he turned into some miserable, starving ghost pops into his head, making him wonder if the power turned him into a freak. Trying to stay grounded, he shakes his head to get rid of those annoying thoughts. Right then, a totally unique smell in the air grabs his attention completely. As soon as he figures out what the smell is, a super creepy look takes over his face. Wrapped up in the black aura again, the kid flashes a psycho smile, finding the scent absolutely irresistible. Driven by pure predator instincts, So-hyun parkours across the Luoyang rooftops with crazy speed. In a dark, remote alleyway, a guy gets slammed hard against the wooden floor. The boss of a criminal gang walks up to the downed victim, mocking the dude for having the guts to try and scam them. Panicking, the guy screams that the thugs are leeches charging totally fake interest rates. As payback, the boss brutally stomps on the guy's injured hand, completely ignoring his screams of pain. With zero chill, the boss tells his goons to grab the debtor's paperwork to finish the job. He bends down himself and aggressively snatches the item right out of the shaking guy's hands. Smirking like a villain, the thug jokes about how great the world is for the people pulling the strings. Crawling, the man begs for mercy, asking them to just take him out but spare his family. The boss just kicks the victim away, claiming an old corpse would not make them any money. Then he suggests kidnapping the guy's kids to clear the debt, laughing like a coward at ruining someone's life. Suddenly, a sharp whistling sound cuts through the quiet alley. Annoyed by the interruption, the boss looks around cursing whoever is making that annoying noise. The non-stop whistling puts the goons on edge, making the boss order everyone to shut up. Feeling the air get super heavy, the criminal figures only a top-tier master could change the vibe like that. Getting into a defensive stance, the boss talks to the void, asking if the hidden master has beef with his crew. Tension takes over the alley while the thugs wait for an answer in the pitch black. The boss starts cold sweating on his neck, proving he is stressed out of his mind. Playing it safe, he politely asks the stranger to show their face. The sound of heavy footsteps finally breaks the silent tension in the air. So-hyun steps out of the shadows, completely covered in his crushing demon aura. In a split second, the kid teleports right next to the boss, who steps back terrified by that insane speed. Flashing a crazy smile, the air reveals he was lured there by an amazing smell. The boss freezes in fear while the dark figure ignores him and walks straight toward his goons. Driven by panic, one of the thugs pulls his weapon and tries to launch a screaming attack. But So-hyun is way faster, violently grabbing the enemy to absorb his life energy. The hit makes the goon scream in pure agony as his strength gets drained. Alerted by the yelling, the boss spins around and sees the most messed up thing he has ever laid eyes on. The other lackeys stare wide-eyed, paralyzed by the horror of watching their bro get defeated like that. In the middle of the expanding black smoke, the air keeps sucking the life out of his opponent without any mercy. Wiping the dirt off his face after the brutal move, So-hyun whispers excitedly that it tastes amazing. When the MC finishes, the thug's body crashes to the floor, totally lifeless and drained. Out of nowhere, a massive wave of black energy explodes out of the kid, flooding the whole area. The dark aura takes the shape of a monster that floats menacingly right above him. Aggressive black tentacles shoot out in every direction, like they are actively hunting for prey. Still starving, So-hyun locks onto the two guys left, stoked that there is more food. Consumed by absolute terror, the boss and his lackey run for their lives screaming for help. They sprint as fast as humanly possible through the empty streets, trying to save their own skins at any cost. The darkness does not stop though, hunting the runners down like a relentless beast. The boss sees the end approaching and feels genuine horror showing on his sweaty face. In a flash, the dark force hits one of the runners, instantly deleting his defenses. The thug goes into shock, internally praying that this is all just a bad dream. But reality hits hard when he drops to the ground, totally locked down by the power of the shadows. Realizing it is game over, the boss screams at the red moon right as the shadows catch him. In a final, useless attempt to get away, he bangs on a house door begging to be let in. Ignored, the man turns around crying, asking why he is being hunted when there are way worse people out there. The young master slowly walks up to the survivor, letting out a terrifying pressure with every step. Looking the victim dead in the eye, the heir flashes an evil smile and warns him this is just the tutorial. Right after, the dark presence swallows the rest of the area, completely wiping out the gang amidst screams of pain. The story suddenly shifts, showing the kid lying face down on a freezing stone floor. He struggles to open his eyes, having absolutely zero idea where he is. Sitting up on the floor, So-hyun rubs his head, trying hard to remember that he just left a restaurant a little while ago. The demonic vibe is completely gone, giving him back his regular look and senses. Checking his surroundings, the guy notices he is in a long, creepy hallway, packed with old coffins everywhere. Looking at the weird architecture, he quickly figures out he must have clipped into some underground catacomb. Out of nowhere, a rotting undead pops out of the dark and charges at him, growling aggressively. Super chill, the MC dodges the slow monster, amazed by how durable those creepy dummies are. A shady voice echoes in the room, praising how calm the kid is and calling him the successor of the ancient tome. The owner of the place reveals himself as a wrinkled old man in a hood, giving off intense magic vibes. Unbothered, So-hyun fires back with sarcasm, saying the enemy's voice sounds like mold stuck in his throat. Finding the insult funny, the mage cracks a gross smile and praises the random guest's bold attitude. Keeping his cool, the kid jokes, asking if the mage's lack of hygiene rotted all his teeth out. Liking the vibe, the old man says he respects the boldness and mentions that the dark scripture finally found an owner on its level. The mage notes that the cursed book just found its rightful boss. The creature laughs in a creepy way and admits he has never run into anyone quite like the kid. Then the undead asks how a kid like him can know so much about the tome to act this confident. Calmly, So-hyun explains it is an ancient item with enough power to bend time and rewind to the past. He clarifies that the book breaks the rules of cause and effect and was crafted from parts of 3 immortal beings. But the heir admits his lore knowledge stops there and politely asks the old guy to drop some knowledge on the topic. The mage makes a surprised noise at such a thoughtful answer. The creature points out that usually, whoever gets the book ends up getting consumed by their own ego or goes completely insane. The sorcerer admits, though, that this kid is built totally different from the past owners. Hearing that, So-hyun notices the vibe shift and wonders if the old guy stopped calling him a kid out of respect. Spilling the truth, the undead confesses that not even he fully gets all of the artifact's powers. The entity explains that the ancient immortals lost their minds trying to hold back the darkness, and the relic's origin is still a mystery. The reason he does not have all the answers is that the sorcerer himself used to be an immortal, but degraded until he turned to dust. Listening closely to the lore, the heir stays quiet to take it all in. The old man explains he spent eras studying the relic, but every clue just spawned more unanswered questions. Even so, he got obsessed, and the creature could not stop researching it. Standing in front of the mage, So-hyun admits it is pretty wild that a former immortal studied the thing for that long without figuring anything out. The creature explains that plenty of famous heroes tried to tame the tome back in the day, but got completely wrecked doing it. Pointing at the kid, the old man says he sees a spark of hope in him, since the guy survived the initial ritual. Confused by that, the heir asks what ritual he is talking about. Laughing at the whole thing, the undead asks if the kid did not literally just consume some people's souls up on the surface. The realization hits So-hyun hard, and he is a bit shocked when he connects the dots. The recent memories pop up, showing the exact moment he wiped out the thugs in the alley just to get a snack. During the fight, the heir unleashed all his demon energy without holding back at all. It becomes super obvious that the more evil people he eats, the more the dark book's potential levels up. Snapping back to the present, the guy realizes his crazy hunger has finally stopped, even if he thinks the whole setup is totally weird. Chilling in his crypt, the mage warns that this is the first and final demand the book makes of its user. The kid remembers the skill's name and realizes the real goal is to swallow up the world's evil, acting as a sort of backup paradise. The old man agrees with his logic and clarifies that the book's devouring spirits should not be taken literally. In reality, they will help the kid feed using the space created by his demon powers. Slowly, the old mage's form starts glitching out into the shadows of the hall. Chuckling weakly, the creature warns that their time to chat is running out. The undead promises they will cross paths again soon and wishes him a great hunt, while the kid just watches with a serious face. The dark catacomb illusion shatters quickly, dropping the heir back into the real world. The next morning, the bright sunlight hits the massive headquarters of the Luyang Sword clan. Standing in front of the bedroom door, Jeong-ae announces she brought tea and snacks, thinking about everything she learned since transferring. The girl feels a bit awkward, remembering the heir's order to just drop the stuff on the table and skip the formalities. The first thing the servant realized is that the kid's pavilion is a super high-risk zone, full of martial arts scrolls just lying on the floor. She knows these documents are priceless, and anyone caught trying to read the secrets is definitely getting erased. The second thing she noticed is the heir's weird vibe, ignoring social rules to personally help out in the kitchen. Even with the massive social gap between them, the master cooks like it is no big deal and insists on eating with the staff. Sitting down to eat, the girl asks in disbelief if he seriously wants her to share the meal with him again. Being super chill about it, So-hyun says it is not just for today, it is the new permanent rule. The worker tries to argue she should not eat before the boss, but he ends the debate telling her to just eat already. Staring at the heir's back, the servant thinks about the third major thing she figured out. It is super obvious to her that, no matter how you look at it, the guy has zero romantic interest in her. This lack of interest leaves her confused, since her looks always made everyone obsess over her wherever she went. The other heirs were no different, and the girls who got involved with them always ended up vanishing without a trace. The girl was terrified of that toxic attention, so she sees So-hyun's chill attitude as a huge relief and a safety net. Even so, she wonders internally if asking to move to this isolated pavilion was actually a smart play. Suddenly, the door gets yanked open, and a scarred guard walks in apologizing for interrupting to drop a message. Annoyed by the intrusion, Jang-ae scolds the security guy for crashing the room while the heir is eating. Ignoring the girl, the guard dryly reports that a visitor just knocked on the door. The guy at the gate claims to be part of the special security team from the main headquarters. Immediately, the servant recognizes the squad and realizes it is the private militia of the clan's third brother. The guard explains the intruders are demanding they hand over the new hire who just transferred yesterday. The girl gets that the beef between the brothers over who owns her finally blew up and reached them. Taking control, Jang-ae introduces herself, but asks what authority they have to try and make rules. Sighing, the guard says the intruders claim they are following direct orders from the third heir, so he could not just say no. Leaning on the table, the MC calmly tells the girl to go handle the issue with the guests. The order shocks Jang-ae, who stares at the heir completely mind-blown. Without looking up from his book, So-hyun says the group is causing too much drama, so she better go see what they want. The servant agrees hesitantly, thinking that even if the other heir is arrogant, trying to kidnap her and break clan rules is unhinged. She bows respectfully, saying she will be right back, but the kid stops her by telling the guard to hold up. Confused, the guard points at himself and asks if he was the one called, getting a quick nod back. The heir asks straight up who gave him the green light to barge into the pavilion like that unannounced. Sweating nervously, the guard tries to excuse it, saying the crazy situation forced him to act fast. Being sarcastic, the heir says that without a babysitter, the guy feels entitled to just break into the room whenever he wants. Realizing how badly he messed up, the guard drops to his knees and hits his head on the floor, begging for forgiveness and swearing he will not do it again. Looking down at the worker, So-hyun decides to let it slide this time, but makes his new job guarding the front gate indefinitely. The man looks up stunned, unable to process the random demotion he just caught. Sipping his tea calmly, the heir points out that the guard is banned from walking around anywhere except the outside courtyard. With an icy glare, the MC warns that if the guy has a problem with it, he can feel free to test his luck again. Annoyed with the demotion, the security guard mutters under his breath about being turned into a glorified doorman. Right then, a voice asks why he hasn't gone there yet, snapping the man back to reality and making him sprint to his new spot. Out in the courtyard, the rude visitor is yelling complaints about the place's terrible hospitality. Jang-ae walks up to the intruder with a solid stance and introduces herself politely. Losing patience, the guy demands the servant take him inside immediately to speak with the heir. Acting cold, the girl warns him entry is blocked and tells him to deal with his business right there outside. This attitude pisses the visitor off, and he draws his sword, furious at the worker's disrespect. Blinded by rage, the warrior charges at her, demanding to know how she has the guts to provoke him. Facing an active threat, the servant's eyes glow bright gold. The attacker freezes on the spot, amazed by the crazy phenomenon happening in front of him. In the blink of an eye, the scarred security guard blocks the attack, sending out a powerful shockwave. Stepping in front of the girl, the guard states the area is restricted and demands high-level clearance. Annoyed by the block, the intruder curses, telling the guard to move if he has nothing to do with this. Giving off a heavy red aura, the guard warns him there will not be a second warning. Crushed by the pressure, the warrior takes a step back and realizes acting tough will not work here. Swallowed by dark rage, the security guard thinks about how much he hated his punishment and refuses to become a joke. Sensing the real danger, the visitor backs down, sheathes his sword, and claims his business is strictly with the servant. The guy stares the girl down and tells her to follow him to the third heir of the family. Not backing down, Jang-ae coldly says her future is not decided by randoms. Angry, he asks if a maid is making the rules now, but she repeats that she is just following clan guidelines. Turning his face, the intruder drops a threat, saying he cannot wait to see how long she can keep up that arrogant attitude. After that, the guy walks off, stomping angrily across the stone floor. On his way out, he harshly bumps into an old man passing by. Seeing the duo at the gate, the newcomer acts superior and comments that they look like they are struggling. The old guy quickly introduces himself as the head garden supervisor for the family's second brother. He looks at the servant like she is trash and orders her to take him to her master right now. Holding her ground, Jiang blocks the way and repeats that the MC is not taking visitors. With a nasty tone, the old man asks if that is her final answer, flexing that he has an important letter from his boss. The guard jumps in, backing up the rule and telling him to just drop the message and leave. Out of options, the admin holds up the letter and accepts the order but drops a low-key threat. Getting close to the servant, the old guy declares her future is already locked in by the second heir. After dropping the memo, the man turns his back and vanishes, leaving the duo alone at the complex gate. The girl heads back inside thinking, figuring out that blocking visitors was not a direct order, but it was exactly what the heir wanted. The guard breaks the silence, admitting he only stepped in because he felt bad seeing a woman in such a messed up spot. He points out that their heir is strong enough to kick anyone out with one word, but chooses to do nothing. The warrior then asks if her loyalty is legit or just pure survival instinct, surprising the servant. The question makes the girl think back to when she joined the clan and the people she owes favors to. Jiang clearly realizes she never actually sat down and thought about what loyalty really means. She gets that she always just acted based on paying back favors and realizes she was treating the heir in the same superficial way. Back in the room, the worker hands the sealed envelope over to the MC super carefully. Totally bored, Sohyun takes the letter and literally chucks it straight into the fireplace. The document burns up instantly, making the servant scream in panic watching the message get destroyed. Stressed out, she reminds the master that the letter was sent by the family's super powerful second brother. Freaking out, the girl guesses the memo was probably about her complicated situation in the clan. Sweating over the reckless move, the servant asks if ignoring a letter like that doesn't come with consequences. Deep in his reading, the heir chilly says his brother would have showed up in person if it was actually important. Confused by his logic, she stays quiet, and the master asks why she did not just open the letter herself if she wanted to read it so badly. Sohyun calmly flips a page, asking why she did not snoop on the message before handing it over. Shocked by the idea, the worker claims she would never dare to pull a stunt like that. Wrapping up his reading, the heir accepts her excuse and changes the subject, asking her to grab some tea. He pours the steaming drink into a cup and asks if she wants to sit, getting an instant yes. Being polite, Jiang holds the little cup carefully and takes a sip. The vibe in the room chills out as the girl hypes up how good the tea smells. But she looks down and starts overthinking, trying to figure out what he really meant when he asked about snooping. An old memory floods the girl's brain, and everything suddenly starts to click. She remembers that the heir used to make her taste test all his food and drinks before he touched them. Terror hits the servant as she realizes those meals could have totally been spiked with poison. Absolutely mind blown, the girl finally gets that he never trusted her, even with the most basic stuff. Crushed by the rejection, she stands up fast and declares she was nothing but an intruder there. Unbothered by her dramatic reaction, the heir keeps reading and coldly agrees that it is the absolute truth. Trying to fix her mistake, the worker apologizes for taking so long to mention that she blocked the visitors on her own. Feeling like a failure, she calls herself an idiot for trying to act smart while missing the most obvious clue. The servant wonders if she spent her whole life just surviving, working in the clan without a real boss to report to. Getting emotional, the girl's legs give out and she drops to her knees on the bedroom floor. Bowing down, Jiang begs the heir to accept her absolute loyalty from now on. The MC watches her silently, just letting out a little noise as he tests if her promise is actually real. Breaking the silence, he asks if she will keep that loyalty up, no matter what crazy risks and secrets she ends up finding out. Driven by a solid choice, the servant strongly promises she can handle whatever test comes her way. The heir cuts to the chase and asks if the girl knows what happened to his dad, the grand leader of the clan. Sohyun explains the man is bedridden with some mystery illness, and a council took over all his power. The brutal truth drops when he reveals his dad has been in a coma for years because someone poisoned him. The worker freaks out over the deadly secret, and the kid asks how many times they tried to take him out too. Standing right in front of her, the heir warns that this is just the tip of a super dark iceberg and asks if she still wants to follow him. Showing pure guts, Jiang bows again, begging for the chance to have him as her absolute master. With her answer locked in, he hands over the scroll he was reading and tells her to read the ending as a test. Reading it out loud, Jiang shudders when she sees the order to treat her like a pack animal if she spilled the truth. Stunned, the girl crushes the paper after reading the final instructions saying they should just quietly eliminate her. Tears run down her face as she wonders why the head manager would do that, since she thought of him like a dad. Sipping his tea without a care, the heir asks if she gets why he showed her that. Wiping her tears with shaky hands, the girl quietly says she gets the point. She instantly guesses it was a lesson about loyalty, thinking the heir wanted to show her how heavy that word actually is. Laughing at her guess, So-hyun disagrees and says he sees loyalty as pure insanity, strong enough to make a man sacrifice his own daughter. Standing in the room, the heir looks down at her and asks if she still wants to hand over her life, if he actually accepts it. Hand over her heart with a serious face, Jeong-ae promises the choice is his, but he is her only boss now. A satisfied smirk pops up on the heir's face, deciding her answer is highly acceptable. The night falls quietly over the MC's huge pavilion, bringing a peaceful vibe to the place. Sitting at the table next to him, the servant shares her backstory, remembering when her family lived well running a trading business. Back in those easier times, she and her older sister had a chill life with their dad. But the memory of that happy era quickly turns into pure depression. When the business started tanking, her dad went to some ruthless loan sharks, kickstarting everyone's downfall. With dark eyes, she explains the thugs baited desperate people with fake promises just to charge them 10 times back. The servant says her sister risked everything to save the company, but the debt ruined them and forced both girls to be sold off. Curious, the kid notes her sister was pretty young to be running a business, and the servant proudly confirms how smart she is. Next, Jeong-ae mentions her sister bounced back in the capital and is now a famous info broker. Eyeing this new piece on the board, the heir silently does the math on how useful a top-tier spy could be. Back to the story, the servant says she recently got a message from her sister saying she found the real guys who ruined them. Fueled by hate, the girl swears she will never forget the disgusting face of the man who wrecked them, some guy who goes by Junjil. Taking another sip of tea, the heir recognizes the nickname instantly, even though he knows that is probably not the thug's real name. Confirming her sister's job, the heir starts planning his next moves in his head. So-hyun points out the sisters have not seen each other in forever and decides they are heading to the capital tomorrow. The news catches the servant completely off guard, making her break into a massive, genuine smile right away. Keeping his voice chill, the guy says they will be spending a good chunk of time in the city, so the girls will have plenty of time to catch up. The next morning, sunlight brightens up every corner of the massive family estate. Rocking a brand new, flawless outfit, the worker walks up to the heir and respectfully announces she is ready to go. But the kid judges her fit hard, saying she looks way too basic to be walking around with him. Moving fast, So-hyun turns his head and yells for the guard watching his pavilion to come over. The guard stomps into the courtyard complaining that, heir or not, calling him by his rank is super disrespectful. Cutting off his whining, the kid tosses a bag of coins and orders him to go to the inner sector and buy the servant a luxury dress. The worker catches the bag in midair, grinding his teeth in rage over the stupid order treating him like an errand boy. Cold and straight up, the kid threatens to make him a toilet scrubber if he is not fast, leaving the veteran sweating with stress. Terrified of getting that humiliating new job, the warrior sprints off, swearing he will be back in a flash. The heir watches him run, laughing inside at how crazy fast fear made the old guard move. Speeding across the courtyard, the guard curses his life for being treated this way, promising he will get his transfer soon. Shortly after, the man comes back empty-handed and angrily reports that the inner admin denied the clothes request. The master sighs, super annoyed by the disrespect, and the servant quietly suggests they just leave in her old clothes. Ignoring the girl, So-hyun reaches into his outfit, suddenly remembering a crucial item hidden in there. With a fast, aggressive move, he literally stamps a square golden piece right onto the poor guard's forehead. The guy freezes in shock when he recognizes the item, while the heir tells him to go back and shove that in the admin's face. Having zero patience for a no, the heir kicks the warrior's shin, telling him to shut up and do it. Stunned by how aggressive that was, Jeong-ae asks the master what kind of item he is treating like literal trash. Casually tossing the golden relic in the air, the kid confirms it is exactly what it looks like, the legendary seal of the clan leader. Cold sweating at that answer, her eyes go wide, asking how the isolated master got his hands on the family's biggest treasure. Smiling calmly, he explains that with his dad being a vegetable, it would be impossible for the artifact to end up with anyone but the son. The gold relic has an insane amount of historical value, since it is a gift from the emperor proving absolute clan leadership. The girl argues that using a priceless item to buy a dress is insane, but he claims the seal has been used for way worse stuff. The heir chilly explains he used to trade the object for books on the street, leaving the worker absolutely speechless. Soon after, the head of the inner sector comes running in with a bunch of maids to greet the kid and dodge any trouble. Arms crossed, he points out the irony that everything would have been way easier if the lady just agreed before getting threatened. Shaking under the heir's stare, the old woman asks to leave, but he completely cuts her off. Several maids start stacking boxes and trunks packed with luxury fabrics right in the middle of the stone courtyard. Seeing the massive pile of clothes, Jiang gets emotional and argues that all this luxury is way too much for a maid. Looking the girl in the eyes, he warns her that the easy days are over and she needs to dress for the chaos that is coming. Getting the hidden message about the messy future, the girl clenches her fists and gathers all her courage. Now wearing a stunning, high-end outfit, the girl bites her lip and steps into her new role with her head held high. Far away from the family base, the wide streets of the capital show a massive crowd walking through the biggest economic hub around. Walking through the market, Jiang's amazing look catches the locals' attention, and they literally point right at her. The trio walks through the crowd while the gossips hype up the girl's style without even trying to be low-key. Annoyed by all the extra attention, the guard shoots a fierce glare at the crowd, making the civilians back off in fear. Huffing in annoyance, the security guy complains under his breath about having to play bodyguard looking like some random. Tired of being treated like a delivery boy, the warrior makes up a random excuse and says he's going to walk away for a bit. Mad at him for slacking, the servant yells at him for trying to ditch his job in the middle of a packed street. Unbothered by the guy trying to dip, the heir agrees and tells the guard to just focus on protecting the girl. In a flash, the kid vanishes into thin air making zero noise, leaving the guard whipping his head around trying to figure out where he went. Cursing in frustration for losing the master, the warrior tells the worker she is gonna have to go to her sister's place alone. Confident, Jiang turns down the help and tells him to go find the leader, seriously doubting anyone could even hurt the master. With a powerful, anxious jump, the guard scales the rooftops to get a bird's-eye view of the city and start the hunt. Using his movement tech, the veteran sprints over the shops trying to sense any weird energy spikes in the air. Standing on a roof, the warrior realizes in shock that the air literally dissolved into thin air without leaving a single trace of energy. Cold sweat drips down the veteran's face as he terrifiedly wonders what kind of beast is actually living inside the kid's body. Hidden from any watchers, So-hyun's isolated figure walks in total silence through Luyang's dark alleyways. Right then, a heavy wooden door creaks as it slowly opens in the middle of the city's shady alley. The heir steps inside taking his first steps, while a mysterious voice announces he is there. Waiting at the door, the kid is welcomed by a local who invites him inside the humble house. Walking through the moonlit backyard, the injured guy following him is mind-blown when he recognizes the place. Filled with terror, the man realizes the thugs who beat him up earlier were definitely there too. Consumed by fear, he sprints in a panic, screaming for his wife to check if she is okay. The woman shows up sighing in relief with the kids, but quickly freaks out seeing how badly her husband is beat up. Finally, they all group up in a super emotional hug, reuniting after surviving such a brutal situation. At the same time, So-hyun watches the whole thing with a totally blank face, staying completely quiet. The wife notices the MC's intimidating silhouette and looks at him super stressed. Scared, she bows super fast, swearing they will pay off the whole debt in exchange for mercy, begging not to get their limbs chopped off. Copying her, the beaten man also drops to the floor, begging for mercy for his old dad's life. Realizing his wife got it twisted, the husband tells her to chill and explains this young guy is the one who actually saved him from the thugs. Hearing the update, the woman breathes a huge sigh of relief and lowers her head, super embarrassed about the mix-up. Crying, the man presses his forehead to the stone floor again to show his massive gratitude to the hero. Getting hit with all these blows, the young master just stays dead silent while scanning the room. The local walks up, humbly serving a tiny cup of tea for the guest to try before leaving. Not wanting to turn down the gesture, he decides to enjoy the family's hospitality for a minute. While brewing it, the host apologizes for the cheap tea leaves, worried the drink might taste bad to someone with high standards. Taking the first sip, the MC praises the tea's taste and promises it smells really good. Sitting at the table, the man asks again how he could possibly repay him for his life, but the heir cuts him off saying he didn't do it for a reward and brings up the criminals. Fueled by anger, the family man explains the gang is a super notorious crime ring run by Junjil. He explains the crew runs everything from loan sharking to gambling dens, getting their hands in whatever makes serious cash. The kid then asks why a normal citizen would even go to a casino, and hears that the whole setup was a flawless trap. Since the laws capped interest rates, the thugs forced the people in debt to gamble to inflate what they owed, literally exploiting the law his own family helped create. Intrigued by the story, So-hyun takes another sip and asks if the man has any more solid intel on the leader. The guy in debt looks down frustrated, admitting regular citizens would never be able to dig up secrets like that. Understanding the guy's limits, the kid closes his eyes and accepts the answer without pushing it. Soon after, the guy stands up, says thanks for the hospitality, and announces he is heading out. Stressed about him leaving so fast, the host begs for the hero's name so he can pay him back someday but just gets an icy no. The whole family bows as the local asks him to hold on, insisting they would never be ungrateful enough to let him leave empty-handed. Their stubbornness ends up catching the kid's interest, and he stares at them, curious. Scattered across the wooden floor of the next room, several rustic masks lie completely smashed. The MC walks slowly through the dark room, carefully checking out the mess the home invaders left behind. Grabbing a plain white item with zero details, he decides that rough piece of work will be his reward for saving the family. The host's eyes go wide with pure terror when he realizes exactly which relic the heir picked. Super nervous, the local steps closer and admits he wasn't the one who carved such a weird piece. He points out the mask isn't even finished, having no holes for eyes or a nose, and feels super rough. That was his crazy old dad's final creation before he lost his mind, and rumors that the thing was cursed made him try to destroy it. Ignoring the creepy warning, the heir chilly asks why the artist would obsess over that right before passing away. The man shrugs tensely, making the excuse that you can't really find logic in the actions of someone who went insane. Keeping his sharp stare, So-hyun asks if some tragic event triggered that madness. Sweating cold because the kid nailed it, the man reveals he had an older brother who was insanely talented. He says the old artist had valuable connections with an official, but the son's talent sparked jealousy and the kid got locked up for no reason. To make it worse, the inspector demanded a ridiculous ransom to let him go, forcing the old man to borrow cash from that feared gang. The fallout from that brutal blackmail was a total disaster, because the only thing that came home was the kid's corpse. Crying over his son's body, the old man found out through rumors that the official personally ordered the kid to be executed in cold blood. Adding to the absolute tragedy, the local explains the whole mess happened because of some pointless bet between rich guys involving relics. The disaster was sealed when one of the old man's pieces was used in that stupid bet, drawing the attention of some seriously messed up people. The noble who lost the bet threw a massive fit and took his embarrassment out on the workshop's heir, blaming him for literally no reason. Looking for some divine justice, the artist hit the streets to scream at the heavens, but just got brutally beaten by the guards. As a final punishment for the drama, the official crushed every joint in the old man's hands, making sure he could never work again. Unable to defend himself and completely broken inside, the man went back home carrying nothing but his own trauma. After that absolute disaster, the artist locked himself in the shop and ignored his family until the day he passed away. Hearing the tragic backstory, the MC checks out the mask with no holes and asks how they missed the real meaning of the art. Desperate to know, the son drops to the floor begging the young master to drop the lore behind his family's final piece. Sliding his finger over the rough wood, the heir concludes it makes total sense the piece looks so blocky. The image of the artist consumed by madness, starving and wasting away in the dark, proved how bad his situation was. Unable to use his hands, the old man operated the tools with his toes, painfully cutting his own skin without ever stopping. Absolute hatred and the need for justice against the system were the only things keeping the old man's soul tied to the world until the piece was done. At the peak of his pain, the old man grabbed the blood and sweat-stained art with his last breath of pure desperation. Right after his weak body gave out, and his final breath turned the chunk of wood into a heavily cursed relic. A thick red aura takes over the room as So-hyun leaves the house, leaving the grateful family behind. Maxing out his physical stats, the heir sprints and parkours over the houses under the pitch-black night. Gliding through the air, he figures the energy trapped in the old man's angry soul acted like a perfect GPS straight to the house. The kid lands softly on the roof of an abandoned spot, noticing the mask is glowing with an intense ghost-like light. The touching image of the mom shielding her kids after the attack pops into the warrior's head for a second. Standing in the shadows, he gets that the angry spirit would only chill if the family was safe, and finally realizes why the piece has no eye holes. Gripping the relic tight, it becomes obvious the artist had the skills to carve the eyes, but purposely chose to leave it totally sealed. The dark irony of it pulls a dry laugh out of him as he slowly places the wooden mask over his face. A massive explosion of purple power covers his body, representing the dead artist's absolute refusal to keep looking at human cruelty. The tense, mysterious silence comes back, hiding the threat that is leveling up in the roughest alleys of the capital. Hidden in the thug hideout, the non-stop buzzing of a needle-piercing skin draws a bunch of overlapping skulls on a guy's arm. A goon leaning on the wall jokes about his bro's new ink, saying the art is a trophy for wiping out another broke debtor. Flashing a cocky smile on his old face, the tattoo artist announces the outline is done and asks if the thug wants to start phase 2. Chained up and panicking, the debtor screams while the criminal announces the session is over and tells the guy to get lost. Suddenly, the thick wooden doors of the hideout are blasted to pieces by a brutal hit. The MC walks into the huge room, grabbing the attention of the younger brother and the other thugs who were just chilling. Finding the dramatic entrance hilarious, One of the goons says he was already waiting for the intruder to show up. Without wasting time, the criminal charges with his blade, aiming for a fast strike. Feeling super confident, the guy rushes in aggressively, putting all his energy into the swing. But he catches a brutal punch straight to the face, letting out a groan of agony as his stance crumbles. Using the chaos, a second thug tries to swing his sword, but the air dodges it with zero effort. With flawless aim, the kid counters the attack, landing a perfect hit on the enemy. The impact is so insane that the opponent gets violently slammed into the wooden floor. Consumed by rage, the gang leader tries a sneak attack, throwing a heavy hit from behind. Using crazy fast reflexes, the kid slides back and dodges the lethal strike at the very last millisecond. He lands smoothly in the room, facing the crime boss who is leaking a super threatening aura. The thug throws a fully charged punch, but the air blocks it without breaking a sweat. Seeing his boys laid out on the floor, the leader just lets out a sarcastic laugh at the mess in the room. The boss claims you can hide your presence, but the shine of a sword always shows the difference between a bug and a real fighter. Then he turns his head and tells the old tattoo artist to prep 4 more skulls for his sleeve. Just then, a guy covered in scars walks in, hyping up the damage his buddy just did. Stoked he showed up, the younger brother says he had fun, but the newcomer changes the subject to a recent rumor. Curious, the criminal instantly asks what the tea is. The guy explains that the shop of that broke artist they ruined recently is still running with 0 issues. He details that the crew took care of the debtor's family, but now some dude looking like a nerd took over the place. Mind blown by the news, the goon mutters the title, trying to process the guts of the mystery intruder. Stepping on his defeated crew, the boss asks who would be crazy enough to test their gang's power. Focused on fixing the problem, the 2 brothers walk together through the streets of Luoyang. Stopping randomly, the criminal announces they finally hit the address the spies gave them. The duo stares at the air sitting at the shop entrance, asking if that is the guy they were talking about. The younger brother nods, but jokes that the kid looks way more harmless and noob-like than he expected. Completely zoned into his work, the MC just keeps carving a small piece of wood in dead silence. Out of patience, the boss suggests they handle it directly with the kid and starts walking up to him. Acting super cocky, the older thug straight up asks what happened to the old owner of the place. The heir pauses his work and lifts his masked face to stare down the duo. Catching a chill, the leader gets spooked by his own fear and silently admits the artifact gives off a seriously creepy vibe. Annoyed by the silence, the buddy screams demanding respect and telling the kid to talk already. Unbothered by the flexing, the MC just tilts his head, reading the situation without dropping a single word. He gently sets the freshly carved wooden statue on the bench. Pulling the relic off his face, the kid flexes his dark aura and asks if the thugs even know what real mercy looks like. The brothers are totally thrown off by the random question, cursing and thinking the whole speech is a dumb joke. The heir coldly agrees, admitting it was a massive fail trying to drop valuable lessons on guys like them. With a smooth move, he puts the ancient relic away, getting ready to handle the beef a different way. Finding the attitude funny, the thugs decide the only way to teach the kid a lesson is to beat him down brutally. The younger brother punches the bench, joking that such a pathetic opponent isn't even worth the stamina of a real punch. The vibe in the room gets super heavy as the criminals start looking around the shop. Checking the shelves, the leader is shocked because his goons swore they trashed everything and took all the valuable pieces. Holding a flawless mask, the man tries to solve the puzzle, guessing some dark magic fixed the place up. The MC walks into a dimly lit room, and the boss follows him asking if that is where he hides. Walking through the door, the criminal hears creepy laughing echoing in the room, making him step back spooked. Out of nowhere, hundreds of ghost hands shoot out of the floor and grab the leader, who screams in terror at the sight. Seeing the horror, the gang boss goes into shock and pants, completely frozen by fear. In the pitch black, a giant claw made of pure energy lunges at them with zero chill. The hit catches the thug dead on, crushing his neck fatally and cutting off his air. The dark rage also swallows the older brother, choking him out and forcing a roar of agony. Going full brutal, the entity slams the boss into the room's wall, shattering the wooden frame. Freaking out seeing his brother hurt, the sidekick tries to use his strength to push forward and help him. But the crushing force in the room makes him cold sweat and freeze on the spot. Right then, a stealthy shadow strike hits the criminal's leg, instantly dropping his stance. Totally overpowered, the man falls on his back and gets violently dragged into the back of the room. He reaches his arm out begging for help with a high-pitched scream of panic as the darkness eats him. The drag is so hard his nails tear the wooden floorboards, trying and failing to escape his fate. Watching his partner's fatal end, the gang leader reaches out crying, begging for some mercy. The room is flooded with the muffled screams of the criminals, getting brutally punished by the darkness. Creepy ghost faces pop up in the shadows, laughing sick laughs while they consume the thug's karma. The heavy energy of the scripture overflows, swallowing the entire shop so there are zero witnesses to what just went down. Floating in the void, the old man's mask seems to finally chill out now that justice was served. Under the daylight, the heir is seen sitting on a rock in the middle of an empty forest. Focused on his carving, the kid admits out loud that he still finds it hard to apply an old lesson. He thinks that just copying the shape isn't enough, and wonders what the real face of the Buddha he used to know actually looked like. Hitting the wood with the final cuts, the MC checks out the little figure and announces the piece is done. Showing deep respect, the guy places the holy carving in a rustic shrine set up on the stone. Standing in front of the grave decorated with the simple masks, he tells the old man's spirit it is time to finally rest. Getting back to his grind, So-hyun remembers the threatening gangs that always looked down on him. With a proud face, he promises that their arrogance is the only useless resistance they will be able to put up. The scene flips to the busy center of the capital, showing the massive Hyunwal Pavilion building. Inside her fancy office, Jeong-ae's sister sips tea and talks about the political drama destroying the major families. The informant explains the former leader lost his grip, letting the young heir's influence scale out of control. The woman thoughtfully notes that the old rumors about the firstborn getting poisoned have resurfaced lately. Drinking tea calmly, Jeong-ae ignores the gossip and says that is not the best topic to jump into after 10 years apart. The broker sees the dodge and guesses the younger sister hasn't earned the heir's trust yet. Knowing her sister's tricks, the girl instantly figures out it is just a bait to extract classified clan inf. Slamming her cup on the table, the servant declares she is not falling for it, and her loyalty is not up for debate. Backing off a bit, the informant excuses herself, saying she just wanted to point out that the family mess is because the firstborn is so passive. Right away, Jeong-ae defends the master, arguing he was not officially inaugurated, so he does not have the authority to be blamed for anything. The woman slams the table, furious at the audacity, snapping back that the kid fumbled the bag on getting the leadership. The vibe gets heavy when the girl shoots her sister a solid, silent glare. Fixing her posture, the broker admits she was insanely shocked when she heard the girl transferred to that abandoned pavilion. Hiding her emotions, the servant quickly does the math on how and when her sister got access to those classified files. Smoking a long pipe, the informant confesses she cannot understand why the girl chose to work for that specific guy. Blowing smoke, she roasts Jeong-ae for following such an irrelevant master, using the insulting nickname people call him. The insult crosses the line for the servant, who ice-coldly demands the informant never use that disrespectful term again. Surprised by the sudden hardcore defense, the broker agrees and apologizes for dissing the girl's boss. The woman quickly explains her job, let her find out the heir is far from being a normal guy. Pacing the room, she argues that 10 years in isolation gave his haters way too much time to level up. Asked what the kid could possibly do in the current meta, the girl confidently guarantees her sister just needs to wait and see. Right at that second, the servant's sharp vision spots someone coming, putting her on ultra-high alert. Without blinking, Jeong-ae jumps up from the chair, knocking the table over from the momentum. A massive crash echoes as the office doors get completely busted open. A squad of thugs storms the room yelling, ordered to capture the head of the place. Recognizing the invaders instantly, the girl realizes these criminals are from the feared Black Bones gang. The servant tries to process how crazy this is, concluding that raiding a neutral info hub in broad daylight is basically game over for them. One of the goons reaches out telling the leader to come quietly, making the woman back up in panic. Before the thug can touch her, Jeong-ae moves fast and locks the guy's arm down hard, while her sister screams in fear. Far from the drama, life is super chill in the middle of a city market. The clan guard finally spots the MC and runs up desperate, asking where the heck he vanished to. Chewing on a snack, the kid shoots a glare so hard the veteran gulps and backs off instantly, swearing he wasn't trying to start beef. Trying to fix the vibe, the man awkwardly explains he got super stressed when he lost sight of the girl. The heir just flashes a confident smile, calmly guaranteeing the servant is in absolutely zero danger. Totally confused by the kid's zero-stress attitude, the security guard asks what he means by that. Looking super chill, the MC keeps chewing because he knows exactly how op the girl is. Back in the raided room, Jeong-ae grabs her sister's metal pipe and warns she is gonna use it. Moving with insane speed, the girl swings the makeshift weapon ready to drop everyone in there. The hit catches the tattooed thug right in the face, blasting him away with crazy force. Sent flying by the hit, the goon crashes and destroys the wooden dividers in the room. The other invaders freeze in shock, unable to believe the crazy power the girl just flexed. Holding a perfect combat stance, she wields the pipe like a legit warrior, staring down the enemies. The gang boss mocks the scene, warning her that playing fighter without training is not going to end well for her. Huddled in a corner, the informant agrees there is an obvious physical limit and tries to figure out her girl's risky plan. Surrounded by guys who are way bigger and armed, the servant keeps her guard up in the middle of the fancy office. Without taking her eyes off the enemies, she yells for her sister to ask for one crucial piece of intel. Gripping the metal tighter, the girl asks straight up how long she needs to stall the invaders. Hyped with hope, the broker promises the pavilion security will take 15 minutes max to pull up. Tired of the chat, the gang leader loses his patience and declares their time is officially up. Fueled by rage, the thugs rush her all at once, cowardly aiming their blades at the girl. One of the invaders tests his luck first, launching a fast strike at the girl. The girl's golden eyes light up, giving her the hack to read every enemy's breathing and moves flawlessly. Using the obvious opening, Jiang-A predicts the attack and counters the guy with mind-blowing force. Gliding smoothly across the room, she dodges the strikes and hands out calculated hits with the metal bar. One of the criminals takes a direct hit to the stomach, losing his breath and combat stance instantly. Watching his goons drop, the boss yells at the crew to stop playing around and fight the girl for real. Totally locked in, the servant keeps weaving through the thugs and punishing every dumb attack they try. Another guy gets violently tossed back, while the informant just watches the fight from her safe spot. The broker is mind-blown by how fast she moves and recognizes her relative's hidden talent. She thinks in shock about how a girl with zero martial arts training is going toe-to-toe with an elite gang squad. Embarrassed by taking an L, the tattooed goon pulls his sword, shaking with pure hate for the servant. With a desperate jump, the criminal attacks from above, aiming for a fatal slash, forcing the broker to scream a warning. Not showing any fear, Jiang-A just looks up while her special vision calculates the exact path of the aerial attack. With a simple sidestep, she avoids the heavy strike that was supposed to hit her dead on. Taking advantage of the thug leaving himself open, the girl spins to deliver an instant counter. The metal hits the enemy perfectly, canceling any chance of him defending thanks to the raw power of the swing. Unable to stand, the goon gets launched into the air completely wrecked and out of stamina. After that insane move, the girl taps the end of the pipe firmly on the wooden floor. The high-end office turns into a resting spot for dozens of knocked-out goons after the embarrassment. Asked about her sword skills, the girl admits she just memorized the moves by watching other people, and asks if the timer is up yet. The woman says backup is still going to take a bit, silently admitting her sister's strength is terrifying. In that quiet moment, the sound of heavy boots stomping echoes through the busted door, grabbing everyone's attention. Super expensive shoes step into the wrecked room, while a bossy voice demands to know what caused all this chaos. The informant's eyes go wide instantly, recognizing the owner of that iconic voice without a doubt. A lady in a red dress with a super cocky vibe walks in, roasting the embarrassing state of her elite fighters. Flashing a sarcastic smile, the boss of the invaders mocks the office's greeting, saying the service is pretty underwhelming. Absolutely disgusted by the fail, the woman orders the downed guys to leave the room immediately so they stop embarrassing her. Mustering up some guts, the informant looks Ju in the eyes and demands to know the real reason behind this crazy raid. Keeping her arrogant vibe, Ju asks if this is the right way to treat guests, complaining they didn't even offer tea. The informant fires back instantly, finding it hilarious she expects to be treated like a guest, while the invader replies the leader's brain must be broken. Smirking like a villain, the gang boss claims if she came as an enemy, the broker would already be gone. To back up the boss's threat, one of her huge goons steps forward, cracking his knuckles, giving off some major killer vibes. The informant gulps, feeling the suffocating tension, but doesn't back down an inch. Even while sweating and looking stiff, the broker holds a confident stare against the crime group's threats. Liking the guts, Ju praises the woman's bravery for not backing down from danger, wishing her own goons had that much heart. Casually walking around the wrecked room, the gang leader notes the pavilion has been targeted by several attacks lately. Sitting on the table looking way too comfortable, she declares this is just the natural payback for trying to expand so fast in the underworld. Resting her face in her hands, the gang leader admits she has a strong gut feeling that the broker is the one pulling the strings behind these attacks. The informant jokes about the woman causing all this destruction just based on a vibe, but the invader snaps back, asking if she doesn't want to know how she picked the perfect time to strike. Acting all superior, Ju announces she finally scored a reliable plug and doesn't need mid-tier networks like hers anymore. The broker asks if this new plug is the one who accused her of being the mastermind, and gets told the new partners are beyond qualified. Raising her hand confidently, the woman in red declares her new ally is literally the most dominant faction in the whole region. The golden piece is shown like an ID badge, proving her unexpected team-up with one of the most op clans around. Totally mind-blown seeing the artifact, the broker instantly recognizes it as the feared bronze symbol of the sword family. The invader notices the shock and arrogantly asks who the girl is that managed to recognize the relic so fast. Jiang-A doesn't drop her guard and studies the crime boss in dead silence, feeling how heavy the reveal is. Ignoring the servant's ID, Ju says it makes sense now why she caused so much chaos without fearing payback, but an upbeat voice cuts her off. Leaning casually in the busted doorway, the MC shows up politely asking to check out the artifact the thug is holding. His random spawn leaves the three women shocked, while the servant breathes a sigh of relief seeing the kid. Walking into the middle of the room with a smile, the heir says excitedly that he seems to have pulled up at the perfect time. Right after, the scarred guard runs in out of breath, complaining about why the kid jumped the wall when there was a perfectly good door. Acting totally normal, the kid claims jumping the wall makes for a flashier entrance, leaving the veteran annoyed by the attitude. Skipping the hellos, the heir holds his hand out to the rival leader and impatiently demands she hand the item over. The gang boss grips the medallion tight, deeply offended that some kid has the nerve to think she would just hand it over that easily. Consumed by rage, the massive bald goon steps forward growling and asking who this nosy kid even is. Keeping his teasing smile, the heir stands still, while his security steps up with his arms crossed asking if the kid's outfit doesn't make it obvious. The goon's eyes go wide when he recognizes the clan gear, but tries to hide his fear by yelling that a basic guard doesn't scare the gang. Finding his fake confidence funny, the clan veteran cracks his neck and flashes an extremely terrifying look. Looking straight at the enemy boss, the heir sarcastically warns them to be careful, guaranteeing the warrior next to him is a total unit. The bald thug laughs out loud, joking that if this guy who looks like a loser is a master, then he himself must be the best fighter in the world. Sighing at the sheer stupidity, the MC gives up on warning them and orders the guard to grab the token immediately. Taking the order without hesitation, the veteran grips the handle of his sword while his eyes show deadly anger. Totally changing his stance, the man takes his first heavy step toward the enemies. The guy's crushing aura hits the thugs hard, making them cold sweat trying to figure out what kind of insane energy that is. On the second step, the guard draws his massive weapon, flooding the room with overwhelming hostility. Panicking hard, the goon tries to awkwardly draw his swords to block the threat. But on the third step, the veteran uses his advanced movement tech, vanishing from everyone's sight in a flash. The crime boss opens her eyes wide, completely unable to track the opponent's insane speed. In a single, flawless move, the guard respawns next to Ju and snatches the artifact before she can even react. The force of his sudden landing makes the wooden floor of the room literally shake. Bowing respectfully, the security hands the golden token to the MC, proving he nailed the mission. Staring at her empty hands, the rival leader shakes in fear, realizing the old man was actually an elite fighter. Holding the relic with interest, the heir flashes an excited smile and announces he can finally check out the famous symbol up close. Looking at the item carefully, the guard asks if the relic is legit, and the kid confirms instantly that it is the real deal. Looking more serious, the heir explains the token represents the clan's unbreakable promise to lay down their lives to protect the owner, wherever they go. The pavilion leader listens closely and guesses the piece used to be a symbol of absolute loyalty. Tossing the item in the air casually, the MC complains that nowadays the piece is just some random freebie handed out to business partners. The gang boss gets her confidence back and argues that, even if it is watered down, the token still grants total immunity against the family members. The heir chilly agrees with that, while the woman flexes that if the gang disrespected the medallion, the clan's centuries-old rep would crumble. With a cocky smile, Ju crosses her arms and guesses the kid in front of her must be the flop heir who does not even know how to hold a sword. Hearing the insult without reacting, the kid just confirms his identity as Yeon So-hyun, showing zero anger. The confession makes the rival leader laugh hysterically, admitting she actually got spooked for a second and almost broke character. Wiping tears of laughter, she roasts the rumors about the kid being a total NPC, asking if he got bored of destroying his family from the inside. Keeping up the disrespect, the woman asks if the kid's new hobby is roaming the streets ruining the sword's reputation. The level of disrespect crosses the line, making the broker slam her pipe on the table absolutely furious. Jaw clenched, the security guard warns the gang boss to watch her mouth carefully. The informant jumps in and argues that, no matter what people say, the kid is still the legit rep of the great clan. Giving a superior look, Ju cuts the woman off asking if this innocent-looking kid actually looks like a respected leader. Flexing a second token, this time a gold one, the gang boss reveals her real partner is the second heir, a plug way higher than some powerless leader. Suddenly, the crime boss narrows her eyes, noticing a super important detail she missed before. The air in the room freezes as the woman processes the latest intel she got from her ally. Pointing right at the servant, Ju recognizes the exact girl she heard people complaining about that morning. The girl getting accused keeps a blank face, refusing to show any weakness. Finding the coincidence hilarious, the enemy boss mentions how ironic it is to bump into the drama girl in such a random way. Circling the servant, the woman asks why she wasted the chance to be a rich side piece just to run off with the useless brother. She pushes it, saying even being a toy for someone else would be better, but Jiang-A cuts her off, furiously ordering her not to insult her leader. With eyes burning with loyalty, the girl swears the heir is noble, and that some trash like the gang boss has no right to speak on him. The defense makes the gang boss lose it, snapping back and mocking the supposed nobility of a guy who ditched his duties and became a walking joke. Keeping the toxic tone, GMJU claims that no matter how useless he is, he still has more noble blood than a stray dog like the servant. The invader drops the kid's nickname with disgust, pointing out the whole region roasts the guy for being a coward who hid while his dad got sick. Staring the kid down with disgust, the gang boss teases that he must be speechless but says she will let him try to defend himself. Completely pissed at the lies, the servant thinks with hate, knowing that words wouldn't fix the image of the master she chose to ride for. Getting overwhelmed by a brand new feeling of being powerless, the girl cries over her own weakness until the kid puts a hand on her shoulder and says she has gone far enough. Cutting the heavy vibe, So-hyun steps in, telling the woman to drop it, since Jiang-A is his personal servant and provoking her will just make her rage. GMJU finds the whole thing super boring, complaining that this kid showing up was an annoying glitch that ruined her fun. The gang leader shoots a glare full of rage right at the heir. Flashing an evil smile, the invader warns that next time they meet, the flop heir won't have the power to protect the girl. Consumed by anger over the direct threat, Jiang-A screams the gang boss's name. Turning their backs, the gang leaves the spot while the woman in red sarcastically tells them to take care until next time. The heir and the servant watch the enemies leave in dead silence. Hit by the weight of exhaustion, the girl's legs give out, and she drops to her knees on the floor, apologizing to the guy for the mess. Stressed by the scene, the head of the pavilion runs to her sister, trying to wake her up at any cost. The girl pants, sweating cold, obviously hit by extreme fatigue after the heavy fight. A bit later, Jiang-A is chilling peacefully on a futon, while the kid and the veteran watch her recover. Clenching his teeth, the guard grumbles in frustration that those disgusting thugs had the nerve to drag the clan's name through the mud. He clenches his fist, shaking with hate, wishing things were different if the kid actually had the authority his rank deserves. With a furious look, the guard claims they could have taken the peace back and unalived the thugs right there, apologizing for his own lack of skill. Looking totally chill, So-hyun asks why he is apologizing, saying the man already did his job perfectly. The kid suggests it is best for the veteran to head back to base now, since the invader might link him to the enemy gang because he handed the seal back. Caught off guard by the order to leave, the man hesitates and tries to argue his main mission was to act as a bodyguard. Straight up, the heir warns there is zero reason for the worker to sacrifice himself for someone he never even swore his sword to. With his head down, the veteran gulps and apologizes again, accepting the harsh truth about his role. The MC holds his hand out, giving the family relic back to the guard. Using his leader voice, he orders the security to wrap up his escort mission and head back right now, carrying the item. The man follows the order without talking back, turning around and gripping his weapon tight. Grinding his teeth in pure rage, the warrior curses himself for feeling so useless even after training his whole life. Walking heavy down the hall, he admits this is the first time he has tasted how awful taking an L really is. Walking back into the room, the heir casually asks if the girl is doing okay, getting some sarcasm from the broker in response. Confused, he points out the woman just said the girl was only resting to get her stamina back. The informant snaps back instantly, asking why he spent so much time checking her pulse if everything was totally fine. The kid stays quiet for a second, choosing to ignore the question and ask for intel on the crime group instead. Pissed at the dodge, the pavilion leader demands he explain exactly what is wrong with her sister before they talk business. Sighing, So-hyun drops the bomb that the girl is dealing with a super serious illness, leaving the broker shocked. The informant loses her cool, accusing the kid of capping, but he claps back, saying extreme fatigue can knock anyone out. Ignoring the argument, Jiang-A stays asleep on the futon. Reading the paperwork he got, the kid checks the data and figures out the broker is planning a super risky ambush on the gang. Arms crossed, the woman dryly asks what her plans have to do with him. She tells him to stop being nosy, making it clear she is not some maid forced to follow a random kid's orders. The MC ignores the insult and reminds her the gang's crime alliance is legit, pointing out the informant knows how dangerous the clan is. Eaten up by anger, the woman crushes the fabric of her clothes, asking why he just sat there watching the chaos if he knew how big the threat was. Noticing how stressed the woman looks, the heir suggests they take the argument outside so they do not wake the sleeping girl. In the backyard under the moonlight, he randomly asks about the biggest merchant family in the world. Then he answers his own question, asking what the strongest warrior clan is, confirming the answer is the Sword family. The broker explodes, asking how the family had the nerve to give a symbol of power to criminal trash while the people starved. She explains with disgust that those gross thugs exploited the locals and ended up multiplying like an actual plague. The woman blames the family HQ for just watching all the brutality happen without doing a single thing to stop the ruin. Fixing her naive way of looking at it, So-hyun coldly states that in reality, the leaders just use the thugs to do their dirty work. Shocked by the truth, the informant admits she actually agreed with the invaders' insults, doubting the heir's skills. The woman acknowledges the kid showed massive potential in the past, but points out right now he is nothing but a coward hiding in isolation. Annoyed by his lack of action, the broker tells him to stop acting like a saint right when she is literally risking her life trying to do something. Demanding space, the leader tells him to drop the gang issue and turns her back to leave the yard. Unbothered, the heir starts telling an old legend about two sisters with an unbreakable bond, grabbing her attention immediately. He explains the older one had a massive sense of justice and couldn't forgive the criminals ruining her village. The lore says the girl bet everything on a direct attack with her friends, but the strat failed and they all ended up getting unalived. When the super-talented younger sister heard about the tragedy, the grief drove her absolutely insane with hate. Fueled by revenge, she started a ruthless hunt against everyone responsible for putting her family in the grave way too early. The kid says she took out a bunch of enemies, but the gang was way too big and the girl ended up losing, proving the whole thing was a warning from the future. Frozen in terror realizing the parallel, the informant spins around in shock and demands to know what this crazy story means. The heir keeps telling the story, warning that the girl's useless sacrifice didn't leave any honorable legacy behind. In the winner's version of the story, their good intentions got erased, making them look like hated traitors to the same people they tried to save. Sweating cold over the harsh reality he just dropped, the broker admits with a shaky voice that she is too dumb to grasp the scale of the picture he is painting. Staring at the moon, the heir declares that is just how the world works, where the good guys fall for nothing while the bad guys winning is just the natural flow. With a piercing look, he asks if she seriously wants to chase this pointless justice, knowing the path will require endless sacrifices. Freaking out over the possibility, the pavilion leader rejects the idea screaming, promising she would never allow something that messed up. The kid explains that to change the flow of history's river, you have to spill an amount of blood equal to the size of the change you want. And since good people can't stomach sacrificing innocence to change that flow, they just end up getting themselves wiped out without actually saving anyone. Right then, he reveals the wooden mask in his hand, making the informant's eyes go wide when she recognizes the cursed item. A storm of dark purple energy erupts around the air, as he admits he also had the naive dream of saving the whole world once. He says when he realized how useless it was, he decided to just focus on living a chill, peaceful life away from the fighting. But the weight of his name and rank made it obvious that the peace he wanted was never actually an option. The kid says he dropped his ambitions multiple times trying to find peace, thinking he could just be as free as the wind. Putting the artifact over his face, his eyes spark with power as he accepts that in the end, there was no escaping his ruthless destiny. The woman shakes in front of that monster form, getting the creepy warning that the ending of the sisters' story can still be rewritten. The heir guarantees he's going to track every move they make closely to see if their paths cross again later on. Bathed in thick darkness, he claims his path is a demonic road straight to the underworld, built on top of an endless pile of corpses. Flexing a crushing power, the entity wraps up the message, sarcastically wishing the two girls don't end up bumping into him in that river of blood. The suffocating energy vanishes fast, leaving the broker exhausted and completely lost while trying to figure out the heir's real identity. Way far from there, poverty and cruelty rule the forgotten streets of the capital, a scene run by the gang's ruthless rules. Chilling peacefully outside one of the crime group's bases, a guard rests under the moon. The bald sentry complains about finishing his chores so he can finally get promoted. Suddenly, a voice coming from the pitch black catches his eye, catching the guy totally off guard. Surrounded by dark purple energy, the MC shows up calmly asking if this is the Black Bones hideout. Looking down on the kid, the guard warns they don't take skinny brats and tells him to get lost while things are still peaceful. Unbothered, So-hyun makes it super clear he has zero desire to join the gang. Finding the audacity funny, the criminal stands up and decides to make an exception to interview the weird visitor. Cracking his knuckles cockily, the thug promises to put in a good word for him if the kid can tank 2 of his hits. With demon power flowing from the mask, the heir repeats in annoyance that he is not here to join the crew. Full of rage, the thug charges screaming to find out what the nosy brat actually wants here. Using the close range, the kid reaches his arm out in a fast, lethal strike. He grips the enemy's face with zero effort, saying he only started talking because the thug was standing at the door. Squeezing the thug, So-hyun coldly declares his plan here is to consume every single one of them. The beams of dark energy choke the sentry out, deleting any chance of him fighting back. Lifting the giant off the ground with no effort, the heir announces the start of his creepy festival. The thug kicks his legs in the air, panicking, unable to process the insane strength of the grab. Covered in darkness, the kid creepily orders the prisoner to start his song. With a quick move, the MC violently tosses the thug far away. Unable to catch his balance, the goon flies through the air straight toward the main courtyard of the enemy base. The heavy crash makes the security guard roar in pain, while the master jokes that the secret to singing is good breath control. Stomping on the downed enemy, So-hyun congratulates his performance and promises to shatter all his bones as payment. A gross smile marks the mask right as the entity gets ready to kick off Phase 2 of the punishment. Once again, the guard gets brutally thrown into the structures, screaming in absolute terror. Completely broken and out of stamina, the giant thug just mumbles, trying to survive the torture. Staring at the pathetic state of the goon, the kid jokes that it's a shame he can't teach him the next step. A heavy, creepy laugh echoes through the night, showing off the entity's sick enjoy. Flashing monster teeth, the energy silently wonders if the rustic mask has finally hit its ultimate form. Suddenly, the sound of a bunch of people running breaks the quiet of the ruined courtyard. A squad of criminals shows up, shocked at the mess, yelling to find out what crazy person raided their turf. Turning his head calmly, the MC greets the newcomers, politely asking how they are doing. Staring at the creepy figure, the thugs sweat cold, demanding to know the intruder's real ID. One of them forces a confident stance, finding it disgusting that someone had the guts to invade their zone. With his face covered for the attack, the heir says names don't matter and invites them to join the feast. Consumed by rage, one of the criminals loses his patience and charges, calling the intruder a psych. The thug tries to land a brutal hit with his sword, thinking the kid just dug his own grave. But the kid blocks the enemy's weapon using just one hand, without showing even a little bit of effort. The shock is literally written on the goon's face when he realizes his attack got parried that easily. Taking the opening, So-hyun strikes back with a devastating punch right in the enemy's face. Thanks to the power of the hit, the guy flies backward and knocks down his own teammates. Seeing their bro drop that fast, the rest of the crew goes crazy with rage and charges, screaming to delete the kid. The relic's eyes glow bright the second the heir coldly declares that everyone here is about to get wiped out. Unleashing a demon presence, he jokes, saying a party isn't complete without music and dancing. Raising his right hand, the kid encourages the enemies to go all out. A massive eruption of black spikes shoots out of the ground, hitting the thugs across a huge area. Panic takes over the scene as the goons scream in pain while getting pinned down by the dark attack. Controlling the darkness, the heir hypes up how awesome a feast with plenty of food and dancing is. The thugs cough up blood in agony as their energy gets drained by the scripture's power. The hellish energy swallows the entire courtyard in a literal show of brutal annihilation. A bit later, dozens of drained bodies drop to the floor, completely out of commission. The MC is still standing in the middle of the carnage, watching the purple smoke slowly fade. Scanning the area, the kid asks himself in disappointment if the game is already over this fast. Letting out a frustrated sigh, he complains that everything ended exactly when he was starting to have fun. Grabbing one of the survivors by the throat, the heir decides to use the victim to curb some of his hunger. The thug cries, begging for forgiveness, but So-hyun just asks which piece of this useless body he's gonna satisfy his appetite best, while a monster smile stretches across the kid's mask. Out of nowhere, a fast, masked attack slices the air, shooting straight for the young. The kid's sharp reflexes kick in, making him tilt his head at the very last second to dodge the damage. Quickly, the master jumps backward, creating space between him and the hidden attacker. A veteran fighter shows up holding a sword, demanding to know who he is and drawing the aggro. Calling the newcomer a useless puppet, the MC watches the opponent push forward with a fast combo of spinning slashes. Without stressing, the kid parries the flood of attacks using nothing but his energy. The heir touches the ground lightly, keeping a totally relaxed stance. He looks down on the new arrival, noticing the solid tech the guy is showing off. A hyped laugh escapes the master, stoked to finally run into a specialist who actually trains. Noticing the threat, the swordsman focuses on defense against the terrifying figure. Nervous sweat drips down the guy's face as he realizes he is fighting a literal monster. Trying to flip the script, the man goes all in with a charge against the heir. The warrior lets out a battle cry, prepping a heavy focus strike with his weapon. Using a spin move, the opponent twists his body and spams attacks, trying to break the kid's defense. A violent crash echoes in the air the second the blades hit the young master's dark shield. Wrapped up in the madness of the fight, So-hyun laughs hysterically while dropping even more dark energy. Clashing power in midair, the MC pressures the veteran and mocks him, asking if that is really all he's got. Completely gassed, the fighter clenches his teeth and curses the kid in a final desperate push. Ignoring the shield, the kid's dark hand phases right through the enemy's defense with zero mercy. With unmatched brutality, the heir slams the opponent into the floor, unleashing a lethal burst of purple energy. Totally paralyzed on the busted floor, the fighter lets out a pained groan. Walking slow and chill, the heir steps up to the defeated enemy. Surrounded by the thick dark aura, the MC just scans the area around him. Annoyed that the fight ended so fast, the kid complains that the entertainment wrapped up way too early. Away from the courtyard, a gloomy staircase leads down to the gang's secret basement room. The sound of heavy steps echoes in the hall as the kid walks past the bodies. Now without the rustic artifact covering his face, the heir keeps heading down toward the dungeons. Unexpectedly, a fast, stealthy strike cuts the wind, aiming right at him. Parrying the hit with zero effort, he hears the angry attacker demanding the intruder get taken out. Taking the opening, the MC grabs the attacker's face using his demon strength. With a violent move, the goon gets thrown into the wall and drops exhausted. Without slowing down, the kid keeps marching through the dark room. He finally hits the main room, finding another guard already knocked out on the floor. Checking the place out, the heir is mind blown and tries to figure out what kind of messed up room this is. Flexing a terrifying pressure, the master watches one of the guys panic and beg him not to come any closer. Backing up on the stone floor, the guy tries everything to get away from that suffocating energy. Consumed by absolute terror, the thug screams, begging to spare his life. A scream of pure agony rings out in the room the second the dark power hits the prisoner's leg. The place looks like a nightmare, with abandoned junk and a cauldron that smells like pure misery. Getting called a freak by the criminal, the kid throws the insult back, asking if this insane slaughterhouse is supposed to be okay. Crushing the goon's head, the heir listens to the guy defend himself, saying this is all just business. The thug keeps screaming angrily that the only reason for all this brutality is just to make sure they survive. Tired of hearing disgusting excuses, the MC hardens his face and unleashes all his punishing energy. Swallowed by the relic's darkness, the criminal lets out one last scream before getting completely erased. The demon power obliterates the enemy's defenses in a fraction of a second. Staring at the corpse, the heir thinks about how hypocritical it is to be called crazy for handing out punishments, while they treat this brutality like a normal business. Switching focus, he walks up to one of the victims and gently touches the terrified girl's face to calm her down. Leaving the survivors there, the kid walks through the underground halls, wondering who actually lost their mind here. Way far from there, the quiet night surrounds the rival gang boss's fancy hideout. The sound of water breaks the silence as a female silhouette slowly dips into the heated pool. Enjoying the bath, Ju thinks back to the random run-in with the young master. A mocking smirk pops up on the woman's lips as she thinks about how the heir was acting. She notes that the intel swore he lived isolated, guessing the kid must have been making moves hidden in the shadows. Resting her face, the leader judges that the boy showed way too much confidence for someone with such a trash reputation. Thinking about how unrealistically chill he was facing danger, the gang boss suspects the kid is hiding a massive secret. Choosing to ignore her own gut feeling, she drops the thought the second a servant warns her about the water temp. The goon shakes nervously while waiting for the boss's orders. Desperate to keep her happy, the guy sprints off, swearing he will fix the pool situation right now. In the lobby, the servant yells, ordering the other guards to bring the package ASAP. Panic sets in as the criminals drag innocent captives who are begging not to get unalived. Acting totally unbothered, the leader checks the situation and complains the items they brought don't look like good quality. Sweating cold, the thug swears he will be more careful on future missions, while the victim twists around in terror. With zero mercy, the woman orders the ceremony to start, and the captive cries in total distress. The ruthless shine of a sword cuts the wind, ready to end that innocent life. A muffled sound signals the brutal end of the sacrifice the group demanded. The clear water of the hot spring quickly turns into a deep, creepy red. Using the nasty liquid, Ju cleans her own hands, sarcastically complaining about getting new wrinkles. Super chill, she splashes that red water on her face, trying to keep her youthful look. A scary laugh echoes through the bathroom as the leader enjoys her own power. The chill moment gets ruined by the screams of a spy reporting that another base just got wrecked. Already wearing her robe, the gang boss spins around shocked, unable to process how serious the message is. With her face full of rage, she demands to know immediately who had the guts to attack them. Shaking in fear, the goon explains there is no solid intel, since the survivors completely lost their minds. Pressuring the servant, the woman insists those traumatized guys had to have said something. The informant stutters, admitting the stories talked about an angry ghost or a ruthless beast attacking. Deeply annoyed, the leader thinks it is ridiculous they are trying to blame ghosts and spirits for what happened. Remembering a key clue, the spy mentions a rustic mask, making her eyes light up. The servant apologizes for the lack of real proof, since the massacre happened scarily fast. Thinking over the data, the gang boss concludes the destroyed base ran into an insanely op master. The servant nods tensely, remembering that last year a similar mess caused an entire branch to get wiped. A memory about top-tier fighters pops up, highlighting how rare warriors who can actually shape energy. It is super obvious that hitting the peak of martial power is basically an impossible achievement for normal people. Jeomju lets out an annoyed sigh, realizing how often the gang's business ends up clashing with this tiny group of legends. To stop losing more people, she orders all the thugs to lay low until this nomad's rage burns out. Blaming fake heroism, the woman complains about the headache nosy warrior's cause for absolutely no reason. Showing how she thinks, the leader argues the only way to survive is to mold your beliefs to fit the world's rules. Right then, a buff thug crosses his arms, super fascinated by the mystery mask story. Noticing her partner is restless, Jeomju demands to know if the guy found any legit clues. The fighter casually mentions that a squad supposed to be watching the gambling dens recently went missing. Since people vanishing is just a regular Tuesday in the crime world, the guy argues the gang decided to just ignore the issue at first. The leader accepts the excuse impatiently, but tells him to get straight to the point. Annoyed by the useless stalling, she taps her foot aggressively, demanding the rest of the intel. Cold sweating from the scolding, the goon quickly drops the creepy gossip floating around the casino area. The fighter specifies that a bunch of people swore they saw a ruthless monster eating the people in debt during the night. Even though he doesn't really buy it, the thug figures the crazy amount of identical reports means they can't just ignore the threat. Furious, Jeomju asks her lackeys what that useless chat has to do with their goals, forcing one of the guys to take it back instantly. Bossing up, she reminds everyone they are businessmen and need to focus on a conversation that actually gets results. But a sudden thought crosses the boss's mind, making her think about a ridiculous theory. She wonders if there could be another guy out there like her old master, someone with bizarre martial talents and a hidden past. Just then, a thug runs into the room panicking, yelling to warn them about a critical issue that needs fixing. Sweating cold, the guy reports that another branch of the group just got completely annihilated. Keeping her cool, the woman asks if it was that damn masked guy again, getting an instant yes. Facepalming because she is so done, the leader admits she was already expecting more hideouts to drop before the intruder was satisfied. She figures the speed of the massacre proves the masked guy is a legit specialist, easily sweeping the gang's elite. So Jeomju decides the best strat is to just not trigger him, arguing that losing a few minions doesn't matter since they are easy to replace. One of the goons agrees with the plan, remembering that paying a traveling warrior to handle it would burn a massive hole in their budget. Tired of the topic, the boss orders everyone to leave the room and tells them to send the masseuse so she can finally chill. Without arguing, the minions bow and start walking out of the fancy office. But the peace doesn't last, because another thug bursts into the room screaming about yet another disaster. Completely burnt out, Jeomju turns her face boiling with rage and threatens the lackey, demanding he doesn't repeat the same bad news. The very next day, the massive city of Luoyang wakes up drowning in rumors and stress on every street. On the corners, locals whisper in shock about the gossip that 5 Black Bones hideouts got wiped out in a single night. An old man jumps into the chat claiming confidently he heard that actually 7 branches got demolished. In the middle of the packed market, the debate heats up, with several people guessing the real number was over 10 or even 15 ruined bases. The fear spikes when an old lady whispers that not a single body or clue was left at the crime scenes, like they all just vanished into thin air. The dark image of the masked avenger takes over everyone's mind, making the people wonder in fear who would have the power to delete that many guys without a trace. Meanwhile, at the massive Sword Clan estate, an angry voice complains about being bothered this early over such a stupid issue. In the middle of the main hall, the second heir looks Jeomju up and down, asking if she seriously had the nerve to pull up without any useful intel. With an intimidating glare, the heir rejects the woman's excuse and harshly asks when he ever implied anything like that. Overflowing with ego, the man acts offended, asking if the gang boss actually thought their famous family was lacking in the info department. Suffering under the suffocating pressure of the room, the gang boss shuts up and tries to process the mistake she just made. Totally cornered, she looks down, showing submission, and gives a genuine apology for the insult. The second heir sighs impatiently, proving the gang boss doesn't know her place and misread the room completely. Giving off a scary vibe, he asks if the woman actually thought she scored the bronze pass just because her dad was a big deal. Cold sweat drips down Jeomju's face as she finally realizes the real danger of trying to do business with the Sword Clan leaders. Frozen in the middle of the giant hall, Jeomju stutters nervously, swearing a disrespectful thought like that never crossed her mind. Ignoring the excuse, the second heir locks his eyes on the fancy hourglass on his desk. With absolute ice, he warns the crime boss she just wasted 15 valuable minutes of his schedule with this pointless chat. Holding a scroll, the leader points at the door and brutally demands she get out of his sight right this second. Without the guts to talk back, the woman bows, taking the humiliating dismissal in absolute silence. Quickly, Jiamju turns her back and starts walking toward the massive doors of the room. But the heir's majestic voice echoes through the room, dropping one last warning, showing he is completely out of patience. The gang boss freezes mid-step, paying super close attention to the threat she is about to catch. The man states with a death glare that he won't think twice about giving the clan token to someone else if she disappoints him one more time. The chance of losing her biggest flex hits Jiamju hard, leaving her with bugged-out eyes from pure terror. Away from the main HQ, in the clan's isolated observatory, a voice yells demanding someone wake up since the sun is already beaming. The inside of the room is a total mess, with the veteran astronomer snoring loud on a desk covered in old manuscripts. A younger student struggles to wake the master up, sighing tiredly, realizing they can't keep doing this. Suddenly, the old man wakes up with a jump, grabbing his coworker by the shirt and screaming in a panic that they have an emergency. Freaking out, the kid tells the boss to chill and roast his habit of doing night shifts solo, but the veteran swears he saw something terrifying last night. Face dripping with sweat, the astronomer strongly insists that this is a massive bad omen for literally everyone. Sipping some water, looking unbothered, the partner just shrugs, pointing out that bad omens pop up here all the time. Stressed by how chill the kid is, the old man slams the desk hard, correcting him that this is a huge, disastrous warning from the heavens. Without stalling, the elder admits he is basically 100% sure he saw the legendary star of celestial calamity spawn during his watch. The warning snaps the kid out of his chill vibe instantly, making him ask in shock if it's actually the mythic star. The dark energy of that star is famous for triggering an era of bad luck, leaving a brutal historic trail wherever its cursed light hits. Super anxious now, the student sits down, muttering that if the read is right, they have a massive problem to fix. Grabbing his own head in a panic, he asks if they shouldn't rush to report the find to the family leaders ASAP. The veteran waves his hand, looking defeated, joking about who would even listen to them nowadays, especially about a mythic star. Looking for a logical play, the younger guy suggests they at least pass the data to the general supervisor of the place. Thinking it over, the old man admits he highly doubts it will do anything, but agrees it is the proper protocol to follow. The reason for the doubt is obvious. The general supervisor is literally the oldest heir, the weakest leader in the entire clan. The scene abruptly shifts to the isolated alleys of the city as night falls. A crowd of poor locals huddles up anxiously around a rustic shack. One of the villagers asks his neighbor if he can see anything, but gets scolded to stop being annoying since the wise man in the tent is meditating in silence. Inside the gloomy hut, a blind old man dressed in rags sits on the floor in absolute silence. The dark sky outside gets eaten by heavy clouds that quickly block out any natural light. Talking to himself, the elder complains that the total darkness covered everything and he can't feel the sun's warmth in here. Suddenly, though, the old man jerks his head up, his blind eyes wide open as he detects a magic vibration in the wind. Filled with some mysterious power, he stands up, stumbling on bare feet toward the door of the tiny house. Walking out, the old man throws his arms up and yells in a trance that the Lord of the Shadow Realm has finally touched down on Earth. The villagers listen fascinated as he preaches that the entity destined to punish the wicked has emerged from the dark to balance things out. The master tells all the starving and suffering people to celebrate because the ruthless savior is here. With roars of pure worship, he announces the supreme figure has descended to serve real justice by firing his black lightning. The crowd starts whispering, with some wondering if the elder is actually spitting facts, while others figure old age finally broke the poor guy's brain. Ignoring the haters, the wise man lets out a laugh of pure joy, hyping up that the true Lord woke up to cleanse the world. The terrifying image of the masked avenger fills the old man's spiritual vision, and he warns everyone to show total submission if they cross paths with the bringer of justice. Away from the community, daylight hits the info hub, where a document proves the formidable gang got wiped out in just 2 days. Sitting at the desk next to her sister, the broker points out the only solid clue they have about who did it is the feared avenger with the white mask. Hearing the rumor, Jianghe's eyes go wide as she remembers the young heir's creepy energy, figuring out with absolute certainty that the thing on his face was exactly that. Getting back to the room, the leader asks her warrior Jiao straight up what she thinks about this whole setup. Thrown off by the random question, the subordinate just asks back, trying to find out exactly what topic the boss is talking about. The informant specifies she wants to know about the oldest heir, and the fighter instantly gets she means the useless firstborn. Annoyed by the insult, the boss reminds her she already banned using that trash nickname, forcing the warrior to take it back. The fighter fixes her posture and admits she did notice the kid is way different from all the rumors going around. Analyzing the scene, the broker warns the warrior not to go around flexing that she works for their org. But Jiao keeps going with her read, hyping up the kid's vibe and declaring he seems to have a super deep and noble mindset. She explains she tried to press the kid by leaking her energy and hostility, but he literally gave zero reaction. Intrigued by this random confession, the info leader quietly thinks about what the firstborn's actual power level might be. Suddenly, the chill vibe is ruined by a loud yell from outside demanding to know what the heck Jayu is up to. The camera pans to the kitchen area, showing the fighter sitting peacefully on the floor cooking something over the fire. Unbothered by the screaming, she just turns her head and asks if the newbie is talking about her master. Acting super chill, the warrior promises Jiang'e she is not doing anything shady here. Jayu calmly explains she just wanted to check out what kind of guy her brother's leader is, and that she does not have much else to say. Finding the beef funny, the leader walks in joking about how hyped the employee got defending the. Switching topics fast, the broker asks how her relative is feeling, and the girl confirms she is doing way better thanks to him. Right after, the boss suggests that if the girl is so curious about the kid, the best move would be to see him in person to check. The soft sound of boiling tea filling a cup breaks the tense vibe in the room. Back in the heir's room, he politely asks them not to leak aggressive energy today, since it would ruin the tea's flavor. Holding her ground, Jayu promises the kid he has nothing to stress about, since that mission is already done. Showing good vibes, the guy smiles and pushes the full cup over so the guests can start tasting. The informant grabs the cup sweating with anxiety and thanks him with a shaky voice, thinking it is insane the host himself is serving guests. Unlike the leader, the warrior takes the tea casually and bows respectfully to thank the kid. Jayu hypes up how amazing the drink smells, guessing the host must be a top-tier tea expert, while the leader stays stressed. Taking the compliment with a humble smile, the guy just notes the fighter is being way too nice to him. Without stalling, the subordinate replies claiming she is just being real, and that she is definitely not the type to sugarcoat her words. The master finds her honesty hilarious and tells her that if the fighter ever wants to switch bosses, his doors are open. Playing along with the joke, Jayu promises she will definitely hit him up if she ever loses her current. The sharp comeback pulls a loud, legit laugh out of the kid, who is having a great time with the banner. The fighter notices her boss stressing and jokes that she might get fired soon, finding the kid's ability to make the room feel cozy pretty awesome. Getting back to the main reason for the visit, the firstborn flashes a polite smile and starts the meeting. With absolute chill, he asks what would make someone so busy come visit a useless bum like him. Silence takes over the huge room while the heir waits patiently for his guest to reply. The leader's hands shake a bit as she grips her own clothes, trying hard to find the guts to speak. Staring the kid down seriously, the informant asks straight up if he is the worshipped figure of the dark paradise. Keeping the smile, the kid plays dumb and asks who this secret entity even is. The woman details that she got super detailed stories from the survivors who ran from the ruined Black Bones base. According to the witnesses, the guy who let them live was rocking a light mask and wearing standard scholar clothes. The heir praises the Mystery Avengers vibe, casually mentioning that this guy seems to be doing some solid work. Having zero patience for riddles, the broker snaps back declaring the kid himself owns the exact same item and the exact same fit. Teasing her, the kid asks if the woman is planning to search his stuff to prove it. Annoyed by his dodging, she demands to know why he is hiding the truth, and what the actual point of his creepy words from their last meetup was. Showing zero rush to answer, the heir just brings the cup to his mouth to sip some more tea. The soft click of the ceramic hitting the table echoes when he puts the cup back in its spot. Flipping his vibe completely to serious and ice cold, the MC asks if the guest actually has the guts to hear the truth. The broker holds eye contact and promises that, just like she said before, she is 100% ready to handle the fallout. Right then, the heir tests her resolve, asking if being ready includes being okay with a bunch of innocent people getting unalived. The leader stiffens up and admits she spent the last few days overthinking that terrifying warning. The horrifying image of a sea of blood pops back up, reminding her of the brutal cost needed to rewrite the world's destiny. Clenching her fist tight, the girl tries to figure out if sacrificing good people was actually the hidden meaning behind it all. Looking for a logical reason, she asks openly if the heir is planning to start a massive revolution against the current system. With a chill face, the kid just repeats the word she used, weighing how heavy this revolution really is. The vibe gets heavier as the broker brings up old philosophy about how lacking morals turns leaders into dictators. Hearing her point, the kid finishes the thought declaring that a dictator of that level is nothing but a random guy. Looking at his reflection in the drink, he wraps up the comparison, reminding her that taking down a monster like that was never really considered a crime. The woman processes his comeback and asks if this ruthless journey is the path the young master chose to walk. A terrifying vision of demons and piles of bodies takes shape, showing the real face of the dark road. Burnt out by how deep the topic is, the leader admits this is something way beyond her brain's capacity to handle. The boss points out the world's unfairness, highlighting that the gap between the rich and poor is insane, and the empire still stays standing anyway. Agreeing with her POV, the kid lowers his head and declares that arguing about revolutions in a trash era like this is a massive waste of time. Unable to crack the heir's ultimate goal, the broker asks what the actual journey he is chasing is. The firstborn admits he spent a ton of time thinking about having to spill blood just to change the course of history. With a dark look, he asks himself why only the pure people fighting for what's right have to suffer and pass away. Flashing a scary smile, the kid suggests the best fix would be to just wipe out the exact same number of cruel people to balance it out. The informant completely freezes at how insane that idea is and asks him to repeat it. Radiating chill energy, the heir repeats his theory about draining the bad guy's power instead of sacrificing good citizens. Cold sweating, the woman tries to brush the comment off as dark sarcasm, refusing to believe he is talking about real sacrifices. Noticing the guest is freaking out, the kid stands up from the chair claiming it was just a hypothetical scenario. Turning away, he paces the room explaining he just wanted her to chew on that alternative for a bit. The broker shoots down his immature logic, pointing out how impossible it is to divide humanity so simply into good and bad. Standing still with his back to her, the heir listens to the guest ask what metric he would even use to judge actions, since laws and morals change. The leader keeps her argument going, stating that sorting people randomly and punishing them is crazy, since no one has the authority for that. Looking super stressed, the informant declares that a guy who passes his own judgments would just be a total psycho and the biggest threat of all. Suddenly, the truth finally drops, and the guest's eyes bug out in pure horror as she connects all the dots. The majestic silhouette of the masked executioner locks in, showing the bringer of celestial justice who took on the burden of cleansing the earth. The majestic silhouette of the executioner pops back up, showing the judge who took on the weight of purifying the land. The leader figures out that this masked avenger is actually the mythic Lord of Amshin. Finding the whole thing funny, the kid praises whoever came up with that nickname and guarantees the avenger himself must have loved it. Not letting the joke distract her, the woman states firmly that she is still super curious. She asks openly if this immature theory and the cruel actions of this supposed lord actually have any chance of working. The informant thinks about the heavy burden of punishing the wicked instead of the pure, and wonders if this is a path only a demonic entity could walk. Filled with some fresh courage, the pavilion leader fixes her posture to face the facts. Standing up from the chair, she thanks the kid for the advice and announces she needs to leave to handle her own business. The heir takes her leaving chilly, praising the guest's hard work. Walking up to her fighter, the broker reports that now they just need to wreck the rival gang's main fortress. She explains she is planning to lead a small elite squad with her partners to raid the place today. The firstborn warns her about the risks of the move, pointing out the enemy has the family's backing and the clan won't let a direct attack slide. Looking away, the informant explains she doesn't plan on raiding the fort herself, since a third party is already going to handle the dirty work. But the woman makes it clear she won't just sit on the sidelines, promising that not a single criminal will make it out of there breathing. Showing resolve, she guarantees that if the Sword Clan wants to start beef over it later, they will take the heat. The broker wraps it up arguing they are ready for the clash, since the target isn't the whole family, just the big shot who handed the relic to the thug. The heir flashes a nod of approval, visibly stoked by the guest's unbreakable guts. The leader finishes by saying her crew is already geared up for the raid, and says goodbye to the heir for real. Quietly, the kid just watches the two women hurry out of the room. He stands there staring at the empty hall, thinking about the next moves of his own judgment. Way far away, the air is boiling with the violent sound of swords slicing the wind in a ruthless attack. The crime gang's warriors are brutally punishing one of their own guys, making him pay for having the nerve to try and ditch the crew like a coward. The traitor's body drops to the floor lifeless, acting as a bloody warning for the rest of the gang not to try that route. One of the veteran fighters wipes his blade, calling deserters spineless trash. Raising his voice, the squad leader announces their boss finally gave the green light for the battle. He demands all the goons get ready to fight until the very end, making it obvious there is zero chance of backing out. At that exact moment, the sun starts setting over leader GMJu's massive armored fortress. Inside the office, the thug boss realizes angrily that her dad completely denied sending any military backup. Kneeling on the floor, the messenger drops the bad news straight up. The boss grinds her teeth, knowing the old man would never risk his elite fighters, since their team-up is literally nothing but PR. GMJu squeezes her hand in pure rage, complaining that to the head of the group, adopted daughters are just disposable tools. She takes her hate out on her own clothes, dwelling on the fact that their partnership is built entirely on fake status. The messenger interrupts her rage fit, warning that the patriarch ordered him to pass a message, and she screams demanding the guy spit it out already. The lackey stutters and hesitates, trying to find the guts to deliver the message, making the woman even more furious. Hearing the message in silence, the gang boss completely loses her mind and screams, demanding he repeat the insult. In a fit of absolute insanity, GMJ tosses the furniture across the room, wrecking her own office while roaring like a maniac. The woman gasps for air, trying to calm her breathing, her face completely twisted by deep hatred. Getting a tiny bit of control back, the leader asks straight up how many hostages are still locked up in the main fort. Sweating cold, the lackey clarifies the place doesn't usually traffic slaves, so there are very few victims there. The thug curses her luck, whining that she will be forced to use her old master's bizarre ritual, a move she really didn't want to pull. Ruthless, the leader orders the servant to round up all the hostages and the staff who can't fight, telling him to throw them in the basement. Flashing a look of pure madness, she declares she's going to run the creepy ceremony to wipe out the enemy threat. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the capital's clouds with the sad orange vibes of a late afternoon. A lone crow glides over the quiet roofs of the market district, acting like a bad omen for the tragedy about to hit. Soft noises break the chill vibe when a stealth squad of spies lands lightly on the area's houses. Hidden on the structure, the informant's agents scan the zone and report zero enemy activity so far. The squad commander stays hyper-focused on the goal, waiting patiently for the order to engage. The black bird flies super close to the masked fighters, but they stay completely dead silent. Kneeling on the edge of the roof, one of the spies checks the busy street below with extreme care. His sharp eyes scan every inch of the sector to make sure the trap is set up flawlessly. Right then, another spy lands on the house and tells the boss squad 15 is already in position. The quiet tap of the shoe on the roof proves how light and insanely skilled the pavilion's agents are. Jayu listens to the agent's report, making sure all allied troops are actually locked and loaded for the raid. The lackey swears the unit made it to their spot without triggering any alarms. With the update delivered, the spy drops a polite bow and waits for the next set of orders. Fast, the masked commander jumps across the structure, starting her check on the other squads scattered around. An agent smoothly drops into the inner courtyard of the informant's secure fortress. Kneeling in front of the boss, the warrior reports the evac for the innocent locals in the war zone is fully complete. Taking the news chilly, the broker is told all allied troops are already on high alert for the clash. A cocky smirk pops up on the leader's face as she orders everyone to hold their spots and keep their guard up. Geared up for battle, the leader commands the invasion sequence to launch the second the main fight pops off, and Jayu takes the mission. The evening wraps around the enemy base outside, signaling the final minutes of peace before the absolute massacre. The informant shifts her focus, noticing her younger sister keeping watch right next to her. Enjoying the view out the window, the woman casually asks if the servant is feeling stressed. Now rocking the group's combat gear, Jiang-A looks at the view next to the leader without showing any fear. The girl replies honestly that she is not scared, but admits she is low-key confused about the whole situation. The boss asks if her relative heard the risky deal she made with the heir earlier, and the servant caps saying she didn't hear a thing. Turning her head, Jiang-A asks to stay out of it, and jokes that she knows nothing about words starting with revolution. Not buying the weak excuse, the broker tells her to stop playing dumb and demands to know what she actually thinks of the kid. The memory of the master pops up, and the worker judges he is a terrifying guy but has a good heart, even knowing his true ID. The woman listens closely while the girl admits she has no logical reason to trust him. It is purely just a strong gut feeling. The servant keeps a solid face, completely confident she made the right call when she swore her loyalty. With a calm smile, the leader promises she will back her sister wherever she goes and tells her to always trust her intuition. With her guts restored, one hand adjusts the sword on her hip, announcing judgment time is here. Jayu agrees with the order without hesitating for a second. The broker walks confidently down the hall, fully locked in on the operation that is about to start. The boss's thoughts go back to the tense chat from earlier, thinking about the insane plan of deleting the wicked until the system flips. Her walk suddenly stops in the middle of the hall. Even though she thinks that whole theory is complete madness, the woman looks back with a new perspective. She admits to herself that maybe the kid actually does have the power needed to pull off that miracle. Way far away, the sun just went down over the massive, armored fort of the rival gang. The org's goons are already heavily geared up and ready for any kind of attack. The enemy squad leader curses with pure hate at the attackers who had the nerve to step onto their turf. Surrounded by the info group's masked fighters, one of the thugs screams, offended by the audacity of the push. The courtyard turns into absolute chaos as the two armies clash, while urgent orders fly through the wind. Overcome with rage, the faction commander orders all his minions to push forward all at once. Taking the opening, one of the broker's spies draws his sword with a lightning-fast move. The hidden agent pushes up ruthlessly and lands a perfect strike on the closest enemy. Totally caught off guard, the criminal just groans confused as he feels the heavy hit before dropping. Unable to process what just tagged him, the goon hits the floor completely defeated. The thug boss sees his boy fall and freezes in shock at how fast the strike was. But he doesn't even get a second to block, because one of the spies relentlessly charges his guard. The fight spreads out and the masked agents drop precise hits from the edges of the battlefield. With a fast swing, another spy drops an enemy before the guy can even put his shield up. The scene turns into an arena of absolute terror, with screams of pain echoing as the gang gets shredded. Cornered by the non-stop hits, the enemy boss backs up after tanking several hard blows. Realizing close combat is a dead end, he yells for his troops to fall back to the walls to clear the way. The pavilion fighters pause the attack, watching the rivals suddenly switch up their strat. Right then, one of the hidden warriors spots a new threat coming from the back and gets into high alert mode. A heavy squad of spearmen from the gang marches up in formation to take back control of the zone. The sharp spears are thrust forward together in a lethal combo. The raiding team is forced to fall back and switch to a pure defense strategy against the sharp poles. Watching the whole thing from above, Jayu warns her leader about the deadly formation that just spawned. The informant analyzes the scene chilly, while hearing that the enemies pulled guards from the inside to buff the outside fight. Not losing her cool, the boss orders all backup squads to push and gives the captains the green light to act on their own. She jokes about the situation, noting the gang is actually so terrified they abandon their own main defense. Jumping across the roofs like a pro, the broker figures the enemies decided to bet everything on raw force, and Jayu asks if burning their reserves isn't super risky. Running on the roof, the leader guarantees militias from other rival gangs will pull up soon to ride the wave of chaos. The subordinate questions the play, pointing out nobody would have the guts to attack the crime boss while she is backed by the massive sword clan. With a cocky smirk, the informant reveals she already took the blame if things go south, making the warrior stress out. Flexing confidence, the broker points out they have the secret backing of the Op Firstborn to make sure they survive the endgame. Leaning on the edge, she claims if the heir actually has all the power the rumors say, they just need to ride his wave. Out of nowhere, a colossal explosion goes off right in the center of the rival fort, wiping out everything in its path. The shockwave is so aggressive that people get tossed into the air like they have zero weight. The broker freezes in absolute terror at the scale of the destruction she just witnessed. Thick smoke mixed with fire shoots into the sky, while she tries to process what kind of power caused that. The pressure in the air gets so crazy that the wood on the roof starts cracking. Thinking fast, Jayu grabs her boss and jumps away, shielding her from that unstoppable wave of destruction. Landing safe, the warrior asks if the boss got hurt, while the leader just groans from the impact. Still dizzy, the fighter turns her head trying to figure out what just hit them. She realizes in a panic that the fort's main building got completely vaporized by the fire. In the middle of the thick fog and broken walls, a hysterical, creepy laugh starts echoing. The informant looks up and freezes when she recognizes the silhouette walking out of the wreckage. An evil, twisted smile shows up on the face of the thing stepping out of the shadows. Jeomju appears completely mutated, surrounded by ruin and leaking monster energy. The crime boss looks like she doesn't have a single human trait left, consumed by the power of the bizarre ritual she just pulled. With an unreal jump, the creature launches into the sky, clearing the distance in a fraction of a second. She lands with insane brutality right on the structure where the two allies were hiding. The crash kicks up dirt and broken tiles, forcing the broker and her guard to duck from the blast of wind. Absolutely terrified, the info boss stutters, unable to get a word out looking at that monster. The thug's hands now have sharp, deadly claws that shred the wooden floor with zero effort. Not letting them breathe, the creature charges like a maniac ready to tear the enemies apart. The broker drops the enemy's name, totally stunned by the beastly form she took on. Fear paralyses the allies, who wonder how the woman turned into a freak of that level. Thirsty for chaos, the crime boss roars her enemy's name while winding up a lethal strike. The monster launches a deadly attack, deciding the informant is going to die right there by her claws. Panic takes over the broker, who freezes staring at her inevitable end. Suddenly, a strong hand shoves the leader to the side in a sacrifice play. Jayu throws herself in the path of the attack, tanking the massive hit from the freak instead of her boss. Even bleeding, the warrior focuses on her leader's safety and tells her to run away as fast as she can. The fighter burns all her energy trying to slow the monster down, while the broker screams her name. With her chest tight from the stressful scene, the informant clenches her jaw fighting her own weakness. Accepting the heroic move, the leader jumps back and screams demanding the subordinate stay alive no matter what. Running away, she prays in her head for the heir to save them, wondering where the heck he is. Away from the boss, Jayu's shield gets completely obliterated, and the freak ruthlessly throws her into the roof tiles. Happy with the damage, the beast changes focus to hunt her main target again. The criminal watches the informant run with a cruel look, making fun of how scared she looks. Before the monster can start the chase, the heavily injured warrior stands up and warns her their fight isn't over yet. Super annoyed by the bug's resistance, Ju grinds her teeth and orders the warrior to get out of the way. Gripping her sword handle tight, fighter Jiu stares the beast down and declares she is the one who needs to back off if she doesn't want to die right now. Focused on protecting her leader, the guard fully draws her weapon, warning she still has her honor and won't go down easy. In the martial arts community, it is standard lore that every fighter hits a wall that caps their potential at some point in training. But there is a tiny fraction of people who manage to break that wall and pave the way to gain even more power. The few guys who can smash through that almost impossible barrier are recognized by everyone as true masters. Staring at the beast, the fighter judges the insane energy Ju is leaking right now. Sweating cold, the warrior clearly realizes the rival boss has definitely crossed the power limit. The monster charges with an annihilating strike, and Jiu admits internally that the rival is a legit master, unlike her who barely touched that tier. Swallowed by wild rage, Ju condenses all her lethal power and fires a direct, merciless attack. The severe hit destroys the stone floor, blowing a huge hole and kicking up a ton of dirt across the field. Using the smoke to her advantage, Jiu dodges certain death at the last millisecond and backs up panting. Furious about the dodge, the thug boss snaps her neck around with her eyes sparking with pure hate. Without stalling, the beast launches another ruthless strike at the guard who is still trying to catch her breath. Jiu tries to block, but the impact hits her arm dead on, leaving her stunned by the creature's speed. Ju's beast claws clash with the warrior's sword, causing a terrifying explosion of air. The monster's crushing attack pushes the warrior's guard back, shooting bright sparks everywhere. With a sick laugh and heavy breathing, Ju mocks the guard, asking if she really thought she could face her with such weak stats. Wasting zero time, the enemy leader unleashes a dizzying spam of short attacks using just her bare hands. Unable to track the speed, Jiu gets tagged by the hits and launched away without any chance to counter. The subordinate's body slams brutally into the floorboards, sending wood chunks flying from the crash. In a split second, the freak teleports right next to the downed fighter, calling her useless trash. The warrior's eyes go wide with pure terror, feeling that crushing energy up close. With an aggressive roar, Ju demands the opponent get out of the way and drops a point-blank attack. A massive flash of power swallows the room, vaporizing everything nearby. The crazy energy of the strike blasts Jiu across the space again, leaving the girl totally dizzy. Completely gassed and bleeding, the guard drops to her knees in the fog and the rubble. Slow, heavy footsteps break the quiet, proving the creature is still pushing forward without mercy. Giving off a vibe of pure ruin, the thug leader walks up ready to finish the job for good. Flashing a sick smile, the monster admits she is surprised Jiu didn't die from all that, praising the opponent's durability. Crouched on the floor, the security gasps for air in extreme pain, fighting not to pass out. Pressing her bloody hand into the ground, Jiu complains that dodging burned all her stamina and wonders how much longer she can tank the damage. Staring at the rival from a distance, the guard realizes in shock that the thug caused all this chaos using just her bare hands. The visual of those deadly nails slicing the wind stays stuck in the exhausted fighter's head. Walking slowly across the wrecked field, Ju shows off her gross look while Jiu tries to figure out what demon took over the rival's body. Searching for energy in an empty tank, the subordinate clenches her jaw and raises her blade to stay in the fight. With a sudden jump, the enemy boss attacks from above, forcing Jiu to block the hit in pure desperation. Crushing the rival's sword, the beast mocks the guard, complaining about dropping a compliment and getting ignored. Jiu stares at her with pure hate, while Ju smiles, calling the opponent disrespectful. Gathering even more energy, the thug preps a colossal attack that fills the whole field with a red aura. Feeling the weight of the threat, the fighter shakes, realizing the killer intent of that move is absolute. Ju drops the attack with full power, daring the guard to try and tank the damage if she has the stats for it. Eyes bugged out in terror, Jiu accepts her fate internally, knowing she won't survive the hit. But out of nowhere, a solid piece of gear drops in and slams into the stone floor right in front of the exhausted fighter. Using thick metal bracelets, a girl blocks the devastating attack and throws up a protective wall. Stunned by the random save, Jiu blinks confused, unable to process what just happened. Standing firm, Jiu stares at her savior and asks who just shielded her from the damage. The new girl turns her face and flashes a friendly smile at the injured guard. Blocking the monster's hit, the girl happily mentions it took her way too long to get here. A battle roar echoes across the field, making Jiu snap her head back fast. A warrior jumps through the air with crazy speed, ready to join the armed fight. Flexing her stamina, the bracelet girl swears she is doing great and introduces herself as part of the backup squad. The new fighter lands, dropping a brutal strike with his massive weapon to push the gang boss back. With his blade resting on his shoulder, the veteran soldier admits the creature is terrifying and doesn't promise they will make it out alive, but notes that teaming up gives them a shot. Still stressed, Jayu nervously asks if those two are the only backup soldiers available right now. Rubbing her face, the girl nods, confirming the team is just the duo for now. The group quickly gets into formation, putting up a shared defense against the crime leader. Accepting the bad odds, the guard gets her stance back and agrees that fighting is the only play. In the back of the courtyard, Ju unleashes a blizzard of purple aura that is even thicker and more suffocating. Annoyed by the side chat, the beast asks if the meeting is over and orders all three of them to attack at once. The sun keeps sinking into the horizon, lighting the capital's roofs with the last rays of the day. Dark smoke starts swallowing the sky, hiding the beautiful sunset over the city. Away from the main boss fight, the clash between the info troops and the thugs gets even more intense outside. One of the masked leaders wearing an eye patch screams urgent orders to hold the line. Walking through the burning war zone, the captain tries to find a way to flip the match in their favor. The main buildings of the fort are burning with wild flames, and the captain stares at the ruins super disappointed. One of the soldiers runs up to her, confirming there are 0 backup units left to deploy right now. Out of options, the one-eyed leader turns her head and roars for Squad 3 to take the front line. But a bloody fighter runs up to her begging to fall back, reporting that their casualty numbers are insane. The captain's eye goes wide seeing her own allies getting dropped in the middle of the chaos and fog. Screams echo over the comms begging for help from Team 17 and announcing Team 10 is retreating, freezing the captain in shock. One of the allies catches a heavy punch to the face and gets launched without any chance to block. The enemy goon's violence takes over the zone, wrecking the broker's warriors with pure brute strength. Suddenly, the giant blade of an axe comes down, slicing the wind with terrifying speed. The strike hits one of the elite soldiers perfectly, dropping him with a clean, cruel cut. The massive weapon digs into the stone floor, while the downed soldier lets out a final breath of pain. The destructive force makes one of the spy's eyes bug out in panic, unable to process that level of raw power. The axe thug flashes a bizarre laugh, ignoring the sword literally buried in his own stomach like it doesn't even hurt. Fast, a foot kicks off the broken floor, pulling off a perfectly calculated jump. Taking the opening, a masked spy drops from the sky, delivering a straight slash with full power at the giant. But the opponent just tanks the hit without blinking and grabs the attacker's wrist instantly. Not letting up, another soldier pulls up, slicing the wind with a super fast side attack. The slash hits the target perfectly, but the massive goon just grabs the second intruder by the throat with extreme savagery. With ridiculous strength, the criminal slams the target straight into the ruined floor. Right after, he drops a crushing punch without any mercy to make sure the rival is eliminated. Panicking, a third soldier tries to block, but the shield gets instantly shredded by the thug's power. Watching the massacre, the captain grinds her teeth full of frustration, realizing the war zone has been completely taken over by literal beasts. The outside of the fort turns into a chaotic stage of pure devastation for the informant's army. Sweating in panic, the commander freezes when she confirms how massive the disaster really is. Staring at the burning building, she accepts in her head that they just walked right through the gates of hell. On the busted floor, the pavilion's elite squad is getting completely wiped out, exhausted and crushed by the enemies. Away from the action, a crazy, creepy laugh echoes violently across the main plaza. The monster stares down the exhausted heroes who just arrived, making fun of their pathetic defense and asking if that is really all the power they have. Glowing with red light, the gang boss admits she thought she was going to get to play around for way longer. The new soldier's cold sweat facing the danger, while Jayu realizes death is knocking. With 0 effort, the beast starts charging up a devastating attack in the palm of her hand. Fear takes over the bracelet girl, who covers her terrified face from the suffocating energy. The attack is purposely fired off target, and the creature laughs, admitting she loves watching weaker people suffer. Flexing pure evil, Ju promises she will send the broker to hell very soon to keep the squad company. Completely pinned down, the 3 warriors shake, unable to find a single opening to counterattack. Thrown on the ground, Jayu clenches her jaw in rage, accepting the reality of her own low stats. With a final desperate scream, the security begs her boss to escape from there immediately. Hiding in the ruins, the one-eyed captain hears the yell and prays internally that the informant managed to get out. Filled with fresh courage, Jayu grips the handle of her sword with whatever strength she has left. A weak, blood-covered face shows up on the guard, who stares death down even knowing winning is impossible. Standing up with massive effort, the fighter glares at the beast and promises she won't give up a single inch. Happy with the pushback, the gang leader decides it is time to end this stupid joke for good. A giant sphere of red aura spawns in her claws, while she tells the guard to wait for her boss in the afterlife. With 0 mercy left, the freak fires the blast of pure annihilation straight at the injured warrior. The blinding light lights up Jayu's face, who just waits for the final hit with her eyes wide open. Further away, the one-eyed captain feels the insane pressure and screams for her teammate in a panic. She spins around fast, terrified by the scale of the energy that just got unleashed in the main area. Staring at the sky painted red, the woman panics thinking Jiao just got turned to dust. But suddenly, a dark, bottomless energy swallows the entire battlefield in a matter of seconds. The captain's eye bugs out as all the colors in the area are ruthlessly stripped away. The informant's troops completely freeze, unable to process how the space just sank into such a bizarre darkness. The captain looks at her own hands, noticing a demonic chill that freezes her to the core. The wind gets heavy and suffocating, proving that the real night just dropped over the spot. The flow of time seems to completely stop, even freezing the wild axe warrior mid-swing. The fighters try to wrap their heads around reality breaking, trapped in an empty, colorless dimension. The whole arena is silenced by dark magic, freezing allies and enemies alike under the same crushing weight. The soft sound of a footstep cuts the silence, forcing everyone to notice the weird shift in the room. The spawn of that magic night completely swallows the massive structure of the rival. The captain looks up, paralyzed by the terrifying aura dominating the space out of nowhere. The shadowed outline of the buildings acts like a stage for the new entity that just pulled up. Floating in the purple fog, the rough, sealed mask appears, messing with everyone's heads. With a booming, calm tone, the masked guy asks if they were waiting for him. The captain turns fast, shaking with horror when she recognizes the newcomer. Dripping with cold sweat, she mumbles confused, unable to accept that the myth actually pulled up to this massacre. Wrapped in dark rage, the heir shows his white mask, proving the terrifying lord of the dark paradise has arrived to drop his judgment. Surrounded by dark fury, the MC flexes his white mask, confirming the feared sovereign of the dark paradise has pulled up to start the verdict.